at my last semester, I almost took a puppet making course, but because of COVID, it got canceled. But I was so excited to show up with the fucking like a little Alexi, just like, hey everybody, it's me! Like so fucking excited to do it. Oh god, now I'm sad.
That'd be so cool.
Wouldn't it be? Oh, I wanted to have like an opposable hand too, like I have the little long stick.
Would you do like ventriloquism of yourself, and you could just use your normal speaking voice?
I definitely wrote a few jokes as a ventriloquist.
That seems like an untapped potential, right?
Well,
like,
Jeff Dunham kind of went like
who's doing
huge, right? The ventriloquist is doing his own voice for the puppet, and his voice is annoying.
For his own puppet and his own puppet voice. Yeah, like if the puppet is of them, then why don't they just do their own voice? And then
maybe there's a reason this is untapped.
Because you can't do racial stereotyping if it's your own voice.
Man, really, puppetry is sorry, Jeff Dunham, but most of your shit is pretty racist.
Yeah, you a racist boy.
But damn
sorry.
if I didn't love it. Damn if I didn't love it.
Yeah, I remember my shout out to my uncle if you're watching this, but my uncle, if you're listening, my uncle loves Jeff Dunham, and I have never told him that it's just racist as fuck.
I mean,
I'm sure he knows.
I mean, it was definitely like kind of funny as a kid. Like, I remember.
Oh, I loved it.
I remember I saw the like big special at my cousin's house, and I thought it was funny. And then I think we watched Transformers like maybe the next
one.
Yeah, and I was just like, damn, this is boring as hell.
How dare you?
So I probably enjoyed
Megan Fox.
I probably enjoyed Jeff Dunham more than Transformers. So I don't know what that says about me.
Most people would agree with you, but Transformers 1 isn't that bad, I'd say. From a visual standpoint.
That is the common opinion held, and I feel like it's just me and David versus the world when we say the first Transformers.
David loves big old dumb shit. That's so
he hates Transformers though.
David, no.
Do you know who loves Transformers? Friend of the podcast, Alex, and his little brother Eddie. Those two, I remember whenever I'd go over, they always had tons of Transformer toys, and I was so jealous. They always would be like, look, I can, like, specifically the little brother loved Transformers. They had cool games, too. There was, I saw one, and it's kind of like a Devil May Cry game, where, like, you're doing big combos, but you're Optimus Prime. And once you do certain moves, like, your finisher is, like, you turn into the truck and just fucking tail whip the other Transformer. It's so rad because it's ridiculous.
You know what I didn't think would happen?
I gotta look this up
again.
Mm-hmm.
In school, someone brought up Bionicles as like a point of reference for their art.
Question.
And
before
I was
anything,
like, hell yes.
What part of school? Was this in high school? Was this like last week?
This sounds
This
crazy.
was last week.
Hell
this was last week.
What
they
genre?
were talking about the Bionicles experimental songwriting.
No, I don't give a shit about your music. What genre of Bionicles? What era of Bionicles?
That wasn't me talking. It wasn't me talking. It was they were talking about the lore about the Bionicles being inside of the bigger Bionicle, and like the the story of Bionicles, Tatanui is apparently a Bionicle or something, like the giant place they're at or whatever.
I think it's Matanui. Yes, I know. Dude. I'm saying I think to not seem stupid, but I definitely know it's Montanui.
Well, so Montanui is apparently a giant Bionicle, and there's like a cataclysm that happens, and
that's just straight Transformers.
Well, it's also like Xenoblade. It's like a lot of things where like things that
Now you're outside of Alexi's
JRPG fans over here. But it's a apparently like the Bionicle, there's like a cataclysm on the giant Bionicle, and there's like a flood that floods his mask or something. And that's what I learned, is that Bionicles can appear anywhere at any time.
And they can drown, which I don't know why that makes me kind of sad.
As this is an audio medium, I will just tell the audience that my eyes are glazed over because I have no idea what the fuck any of either Bionicle, Xenoblade, or Transformers lore. So
I really just want to. I'm still looking up when Optimus Prime tail whips in this video game. So go ahead, keep talking. Because it's hilarious.
I mean, not to hate on Transformers in general, because the old cartoons did look like kind of something I would have watched as a kid, but I just never got into it. There was a lot of
Transformers cartoons. There was a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, wasn't Transformers handled by like
Hasbro.
The same? Yeah. Well, the animation, I mean, like the American animation.
I think that was Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So
we're now watching
because I know you can cut this out.
Yeah. No, let's keep it in.
You guys see this?
We're here.
Yeah.
You guys see Bumblebee?
Yeah.
Watch this.
We see polygonal Bumblebee.
Fucking car. It's so ridiculous.
This game looks sort of lit. It's like a combination between like Transformers and DBZ.
Yeah,
like
the graphics are really rad in my opinion.
Oh my god!
But
it's just like turn into a dinosaur.
Yeah,
there's a lot of Dinobots.
Yeah, Dinobots. There you go.
Oh my
I want to see. There's one where he tail whips the car.
Wait, so do they do the fusions too? Just like Dragon Ball Z has fusions, do they do like car connections?
They combined and stuff. Do you remember in the second Transformers live action movie where Optimus Prime finds that old jet and then he's like, "Hey, I'm about to die. I'm gonna give you my parts so you can fly." And then Optimus uses them to fly, and then he lands, and then he just like brushes them off his shoulder like they're old like shit, even though it's like a friend of his who just died for him. Because I think about that moment very often. It'd be like if I died and I gave you my jacket to keep you warm, Manny, and then as soon as you were able to take it off, you threw it on the floor, never to pick up again. I don't know. That shit fucked me up for a long time. Anyway,
I feel like it would be if I needed your arms or something, and I just like cut your arms off and then put them on me and then threw them on the floor after I was done.
I didn't want to go that morbid, but I'm sad I did it. Thank you for that. Because it's much more accurate.
Yeah. Transformers they have a special place in my heart because I never gave a fuck about them, and I still don't give a fuck about them. Really. They're exactly how I feel, how Andres feels right now, except like I saw the first two movies and they're Michael Bay, right? Like,
yeah,
they're fucking rad. Michael Bay makes movies for teenage boys, and I have never left that stage in my life.
That checks out. That's on brand.
That's on brand for like.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me question if I was ever at that stage of my life sometimes, because I'm just like, I just do not like the
Andres
Transformers
was born
movies.
an old man.
I think so.
Andres, do you remember to bring it to something you would know? Because this is always what happens in these shows. Do you remember at the end of Gurren Lagann where Shimon goes, "Let's do the old you know what," and everyone's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" He goes, "Like, what else are we gonna do? We're gonna combine," and then they just combine, and then they fight bigger, and they keep combining to win the whole TV series. That's Transformers.
I didn't need to be explained the concept of Transformers.
No. I just wanted to talk about Gurren Lagann. Okay. Because that's one of my favorite sines. Where it's just kind of like super self-aware.
Thank you for being real about that.
Oh, you think I'm a mansplain Transformers to you when it's dumb as shit? Oh, I just want to see if you remember that scene.
I never finished Gurren Lagann. I'm like halfway through the series.
Really?
I know. I'm like halfway through the series.
Does the time skip throw people off? Or?
I don't know. People say they get... Well, I don't know. I think some people, it doesn't hook them in instantly. And I think the first episode does a pretty good job of like making you want to watch more.
Is it the big happening?
Episodes are a little slow.
Is it the big happening in like episode 7 that just gets people like, oh, I don't want to fucking watch this anymore?
I definitely had there's a person I know on the internet who has rival opinions of me in just about everything. And I was having a bad day and I was complaining to them in our Discord server. And I was like, I want to go watch Gurren Lagann so I can be happy. And they're like, Gurren Lagann should make you cry. And I was like, oh boy, like we clearly get different things out of this media together.
I don't. It should.
This is my TED talk about Gurren Lagann.
It really shouldn't, but that's beside the point. It didn't make me cry.
That's what I'm saying. I don't get
the whole
there's
point.
Sad parts.
Yeah, the whole point of the end is just like, yeah, it was. There's some things you know are gonna happen. You just keep moving on.
I haven't.
I'm just gonna stop quoting Girl. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, man. Because I could have. I was about to drop a lot of shit.
That's how I feel about Penguin Drum. Haven't gotten to the parts that are gonna hit me yet, but
it's all the second half. I love Penguin Drum because it starts off super somber if you're talking about the first episode, and then it gets really fucking weird and like is basically a comedy. And then it goes back to somber like real quick when you learn the stakes that everybody has or why they do everything they do, and it's like, oh, these are all just broken people.
Speaking of broken people, how y'all doing?
Wow.
How's the week been?
This week sucked for all of us. Let's be honest here.
Yeah. Alexi's got your new job.
I got my new job. Yeah. I'm just the luster's starting to wear off. So now I'm just like, oh, every week is 40 hours a week.
Oh, this is why Andres is always complaining about work.
Yeah. I definitely was like, I'm still in the mindset of like, at the end of the semester, it's going to end and there'll be another moment of change to kind of be excited for the next semester. That'll never happen to me again. And I'm not used to that yet.
Unless you want to go back to school. But...
I don't think I will.
No, don't do it. Please. As someone who's there, don't do it.
I don't think I love any subject enough to go back to school for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's also like I don't know. I've been telling a lot of people school is really about just like what you get out of it, not like a track or anything. So like don't go to school if you're not going to get anything you need from it and you're just doing it because it's a path to follow.
I was invited to this thing. Like you could apply for tickets through the school and it's called SACNAS. I don't remember what the fuck it was about. Do you know what that is, Manny?
It's like it's SACNAS is a like Latinx scholars program.
I'm brown. And so I was like, I'm gonna go. I was like, I'll go, but I don't know if I'm gonna go to grad school. Like I just don't know. And I remember there was this lady and she was like, have you taken your, and she said some acronym, like your blank test? And I was like, I have no idea what that is. And then she was like handing me a piece of paper.
Your being brown test?
And yeah, do you have your free hold test? And she was like handing me a piece of paper and she goes, have you taken your XYZ test? And I was like, I don't know what that is. And she like recoiled the paper back and like she's like, you're here at SACNAS, you don't know what that test is? And I was like, wow, what a great and welcoming place this is. Like straight up like I just don't know something. And she's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, it's okay, Southern white girl from Alabama. You clearly don't understand what you're doing here in Hawaii, and I get it too.
She's following the purest form of genetic process, which is colonizing. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
We don't have to talk about that. That is not a TED Talk that I selected for us.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, I tried to stay away from the shit that I normally veer towards.
I think we all did
and
that.
ironic,
right?
Yeah, in a way, I think so. So I guess this is a good way to sort of segue and open up a little bit.
Boom. Perfect every time.
We're so good, especially when I explain that this is specifically a segue. Oh, so yummy.
That happens literally every time.
Yeah. Do people want to say what like videos they recommended and stuff?
Well, we have to for context purposes. We're not just gonna talk about our topics without mentioning the videos.
They have to go search through every TED Talk to figure out what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you go through. I'm gonna make you ready for the stat. I'm gonna make you go through all. I think it's like 18,000 videos.
18,000?
Jesus,
I think so. No, that's probably wrong. It's 3,500, over 3,500 as of October 2020.
That is two drastically different numbers.
Yeah, I don't know how to count. I also did not count all of these for the record. I can't read either. Okay.
Whatever. I'm not gonna solve this problem. This is the laziest thing ever.
I'll start off with saying what I chose, and then you all can go. I ended up suggesting. Yeah, you do you
quick, so I can get everything ready. And I just got remembered. Norm Macdonald died, and I got real sad. So now, hopefully, I can bring this energy back. But rest in peace, Norm Macdonald, man. I legit was watching comedians talk about how much they love him last night, and I was like about to cry. And I was like, I need to get out of here. This is not the right mood to be in. Manny, what 2 videos did you bring to watch us? We were supposed to bring one, and then we all wanted to impress the teacher, and we brought a second one.
You guys wanted to impress the teacher. I chose one.
It was me.
It was Alexi. This is Alexi's fault entirely.
As usual.
No. I recommended 2 videos. We all did. Whatever. I recommended this video called Art. Yeah, Alexi really wanted to impress us.
I'll explain it when it comes back around to me.
So I chose a video called Art That Transforms Cities into Playgrounds of the Imagination. This is a video by Helen Marriage, probably. I believe that's correct because she's European of some sort. So I'm making some generalizations.
Yeah.
It seemed to be that she is
Yeah,
British.
That's what we do. British. Shout out to our 0 British fans. And the other video I recommended was called "The Era of Blind Faith in Big Data Must End."
Sorry.
And
Can you repeat what you
Alexi's
said? I was losing it at British. I've never heard Andra say that.
Yes.
Oh, I'm crying.
I'll go ahead and
this is a good episode.
Repeat myself. Yeah, we livid. So the second video that I recommended was
what is happening? Oh boy.
The second video I recommended is called "The Era of Blind Faith in Big Data Must End" by Cathy O'Neil. So those are the 2 videos. The first one is like about public art, and the second one is about artificial intelligence, algorithms, and big data. Yeah.
Really love that second video, honestly.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Really. Okay, sorry. Jesus.
sorry, no. Sorry, I did not mean to shut down your enthusiasm. I really liked it. It was
cool.
Too.
I like that topic a lot. I would definitely. Once you think about it, you're like, yeah, this is we're probably fucked in a lot of ways. Well, even if you don't think about it, but whatever.
Yeah, and that's something that I think we all sort of did a little bit. Is we all chose like one video that seemed pretty like influential and deep, and then the other one which was like maybe shorter or less like less aggressively intellectual. And yeah. But Andres, how about you kick us off with your videos?
Okay. I went full schooling. I reverted to my schooling. Is what I'm trying to say, and I went full architecture mode. First one I recommended was gonna be the only one I recommended was called "The Genius Behind Some of the World's Most Famous Building," talk by Renzo Piano, who is a very well-known and influential architect. And then I was given the prompt to find a second one because Manny and Alexi couldn't choose between one. So
it was really hot out here, but think all of this shade is being thrown at us so we can cool down.
Yeah, I'm sweating like a fat man over here. So I need
it. So my second one actually kind of works very well as a companion piece. Is called "Victims of the City" by Mark Raymond.
Damn, In the Heart of the City by Mark Raymond.
It's just the heart of the city, but that's
thanks
for the audience. That's the name. Or that was the name of my book that I submitted for my thesis project. So,
yeah,
it's also a very good Stevie Wonder
that's
song.
Great. Yeah.
I recommended a video called "The Untapped Energy Source That Could Power the Planet" by Jamie C. Beard. And I also recommended a video called "The Gift and Power of Emotional Courage" by Susan David. And I never trust people with two first names. And so that's something I enjoyed I enjoyed both the talks, but as always, we will nitpick something we didn't like.
Also say the one that you accidentally recommended.
Oh, thank you. So I meant to submit Jamie C. Beard's Untapped Energy Source, and at the end of the video it auto loaded the next one, and I accidentally loaded Cathy Hannun's "How to Heat Your Home Without Hurting the Planet." They're very similar, but they are structured differently. One is more about the actual infrastructure to use geothermal energy, and then one's just like put a lava lamp in your room and then you're good for the rest of your life or something, apparently. I don't know. I didn't watch the one I recommended. The first one I recommended.
What a good thing.
Oh my God.
We didn't get the chance to watch the one you actually wanted to recommend because you sent the video as we were recording and you didn't watch the one we watched. So
God, I'm crying. I'm so stupid.
You know what? I think that's going to make for an interesting time. We'll just talk about one thing. You talk about the other thing. We'll see what happens.
We'll see where we converge on our opinions on geothermal energy.
Watch this one. Segue! Go ahead, Manny. There you go. Sweet. Thank you. So I think starting off with a little background information about TED would be interesting because it's such like a ubiquitous thing. Like everyone's like, ooh, TED Talks, TED videos, YouTube, like learning, power, knowledge. It kind of like just showed up one day. For me specifically, I was like, oh, here's a TED Talk. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I know nothing about the history of TED.
That one day was definitely like one of my first days in freshman year of college. So
yeah, for me, I ran across like a TED Talk really, really early in like junior year of high school, I think, or like sophomore year, because I was shout out to high school me. I was a dick and I didn't like a lot of people, and I wanted to feel cool and badass, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna be smart. I'm gonna watch these TED videos. So that's what I tried to do.
One time we found like an old math book. Like my uncle like was getting rid of stuff. My mom was like, you should take this book and read it so you'll be ready when you take it in high school. And I was like, I'm 12? Like, what do you want me to do? I'm not gonna do that.
I know. sometimes I've recommended like that people. I was like, you don't need college. College is a fucking scam. What you should do instead is go buy textbooks and read them.
Oh, my man's
Just be
got
fully
double
self-taught.
scammed.
Damn, dude. Oh my god, that's so Manny.
Damn near
That's such a
triple
Manny
scammed
comment.
if you think about it.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. I talk a lot of shit about academia, and
You're
then
so
they're like,
dumb.
"But you're this is your second master's program."
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like, "Yeah, they
so
pay
deep
me."
in academia.
Yeah, it's one of my worst qualities. I will admit that.
It's one of my worst qualities. That's a great sentence. I'm gonna start saying that to people.
Yeah, I mean, just be open with it, you know? Like, yeah, I shit the bed. You know, it's okay.
All the time, bro. Oh fuck.
Yeah, but that's how I ran across TED, is like I really just found it like browsing YouTube, and I was like, wow, this person seems to know what they're talking about. They have a lot of knowledge. They're smart.
They're in front of a stage and with a captive audience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like that's how I knew about TED and how I engaged with TED for like a really long time, was just like, ooh, cool video to like learn about something. But as I'll talk about later, that sort of like has its own problems. But to get there, we sort of want to talk a little bit about the background of TED, because I think it's really interesting how it started out and the way it grew and how that influences like what they do now. It's all intertwined in a very interesting capitalist bubble. So some background. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design.
Oh.
And it was originally yeah. It's not the bear.
I was like, am I gonna make a reference to this shitty movie I really enjoyed when I was younger? Nah, I'll skip it. But thank God Manny's here.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm filled with bad references. It's like my lifeblood.
It's one of my worst qualities.
Yeah, so technology, education, or entertainment and design. I think it would be way cooler if it was education, but it's entertainment. And it was founded by Harry Marks, who who is a broadcaster and graphic designer. I didn't say it out loud until right now.
We are on one today, gentlemen. Oh boy.
And so he was like a broadcast designer apparently, and a graphic designer. And the other founder, who's a co-founder, is Richard Saul Werman, who is an architect and graphic designer. And this TED was started back in 1984 as a way to focus on these three specific pillars of society, which was technology, entertainment, and design.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the idea that they would host these conferences where they would bring like really influential people to them and sort of just talk about current topics, almost like a academic conference in a way.
But for the general public,
so
that way people can be exposed to the ideas.
Well, general public, loosely, yeah.
Oh.
So in 1984, it was these conferences were happening maybe every couple of years because they cost so much to put on. And
pay people, infrastructure, all that shit.
Yeah. And so the idea of like early TED was back in like the 80s and early 90s. They were having these conferences that would demo like really new things in each of these fields. In fact, the first TED conference had like a demo of the compact disc. It had like people from Philips and Sony there.
What's that?
Oh my god!
I'm a zoomer I'm a zoomer that has never had an iPod even.
I love the idea of Manny Manny being such a hipster, he calls it a compact disc instead of a CD. He goes into fucking Salzers and is like, "Where's your compact disc section?" They just kick you out because you're a piece of shit.
Where's your compact disc section?
Look,
they probably
have that upstairs.
They might have, yeah.
Ooh, shout out to Salzers. Hope you're doing well.
Not the video store, because that's definitely not doing well. When in that one? Ooh,
oh my god.
That smells like pee.
Yeah, that place.
Is it still alive? Is Salzers the video store?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Whoa.
And
they're still doing rentals?
You can still do rentals.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't believe they're still in business.
I can't believe they're still in business. I was shocked.
Well, you know what needs to happen? We need to get them on a TED Talk.
Let's get them. TED Talk.
They can demo the new Pickle Rick Bong disc. Or something.
The compactor disc.
The compactor disc. What the fuck is that?
Can you get on? Because I am losing my mind.
So, anyways, so that was early TED. In like the 1980s, they were having conferences every so often. Really influential tech people were coming to them. And they even though they're technology, entertainment, and design, they were mostly like new media. So they were doing CDs, they were doing DVDs. Like this is sort of the space they were in. And highlighting the advancements of these things for people who would attend these events. Now, most of these conferences in the 80s and 90s were like operated at like a economic loss, essentially. So they started to expand into other fields in the 90s to sort of branch out and to have the same culture while bringing in new people who specialized in like philosophy, different sciences, music, like all of these different things. And so that's how the 90s were. And they were operating at an economic gain, but only because they were charging like ridiculous prices for these tickets.
Oh.
So early TED was almost entirely funded by ticket sales to attend the conferences.
Uh-huh.
And because they were bringing in like really big demos of tech and like, you know, the quote unquote technological elite of society, they were charging out the ass for these tickets. And so early, like in the 90s, I think these tickets were somewhere in like the $1,000 or $2,000 range for a single ticket for the conference, which could have been like a couple of days, maybe like 1 or 2 days. And so this was expanding in the 90s. We hit the 2000s and the founders are getting really old. And they're like, yo, we want someone else to take over. And there's this guy named Chris Anderson who is just like a straight up British entrepreneur. Like he does not have like, he's just like a finance entrepreneur. But he's also a TED enthusiast, so to speak. So this guy, Chris Anderson, he takes over for the founders in terms of curating the TED conferences. And so in the early 2000s, these tickets started to skyrocket in price. While
even though $1,000 in the fucking 90s was a fortune. So
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Do you have any like prices, like listings?
Yeah, I do. I do have a couple. So,
also Chris Anderson was the name of a basketball player with the nickname Birdman, which I know you didn't know, Manny, but I was like, why the fuck do I know his name?
Fucking that dude.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I just looked him up.
Yeah,
he was 6'10".
Oh my god!
He played like power forward, I think. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh Jesus!
Also had a bunch of tattoos. I wouldn't want to
be up against a 6'10".
Yeah, he had a lot of tattoos.
Hey,
he was a cool white guy.
He's vaguely like Machine Gun Kelly.
He is vaguely like. Okay, hit me with the ticket prices.
That's funny. Okay, so so Chris Anderson was like, "Yo, we're gonna fucking jack these prices up." So in 2006, a single ticket to attend cost $4,400.
No way.
Yes, way.
What year?
C way.
2006.
2006?
2006, yeah. And it was invitation only. You couldn't come in unless you knew someone. And this is sort of how the previous conferences ran.
And I'm
which is
assuming
why
they were all volunteers working there. Like,
yeah,
I knew someone who was a volunteer, and that's how she got her ticket in.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
and to be more,
crazy. Go ahead.
To be more specific, too, TED doesn't pay any of its speakers. At all.
It doesn't.
No.
Really?
It doesn't pay for independent conferences. They definitely don't. And for there are like I'll talk about this a little bit later, but TED sort of expanded to have things like TEDx, which are like independent conference organized by people who are at institutions. There's also things like TED Youth, which is like for teenagers, and like it's a conference like that. So there's like a lot of stuff that TED expanded into. But that being said, TED doesn't pay its speakers at all. The normally what happens is these independent events have to be funded out of pocket. And the events and no one gets any money for doing anything there. And then the events that TED runs, the money goes back into the organization so that it can operate its like online structure. It can like pay people like Chris Anderson, and so it can fund this thing called the TED Prize, which is like $1 million prize that it gives to a speaker every year.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Get paid in exposure. Gotta love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's 2006. 4,400 in invitation only. In 2007, they moved to a $6,000 annual subscription model. So if you paid $6,000, you could go to like any TED event for the year. And then in 2018,
like, I guess the school could do that, right? And be like, every year we're gonna auction, like, we buy 2 tickets and then we just raffle them off.
But I mean, maybe
as like a person, that's a lot of money. You see people talk when I go on YouTube for free, like.
It's pretty fucked. And then in 2018, get this. This is the newest stat. 2018, $10,000 a person per conference. $10,000.
That's so much money. That's insane.
It's aggressive.
Per conference. And there's tons of conferences.
Yeah. So here's the thing. These prices are definitely specific. I'm pretty sure they're specifically for the main conference, which is held in British Columbia every year. It's held in Vancouver. The other TED events, because there's like not really any money being exchanged, they oftentimes sell tickets for cheaper. And when we say cheaper, we're still probably talking like $50 or $100 for the conference.
For Comic-Con. Comic-Con San Diego. The biggest Comic-Con, like, known variety. Entertainment Weekly Ultra Exclusive A-List Comic-Con Party Ticket is $5,000.
Where you get to meet everyone.
In comparison to the 10 grand to maybe see some good, maybe. There's no guarantee the conferences will be good. Right? Like.
Right, exactly.
Oh my God.
And so that's how TED has been run since 2002, basically. Since Chris Anderson, I'm gonna try to make this not a Chris Anderson shit on you podcast right now, but
he can come Chris on the podcast whenever he wants. You can come on the podcast whenever.
Yeah. I'll kiss you or something. So
Me.
don't come on. So no, Chris Anderson.
Damn it.
I'll be your sugar baby, Chris Anderson.
No.
Okay. So Chris basically had this vision for TED to sort of expand it. His company, his like nonprofit bought TED in 2002 and sort of just took off with it. So now that I've talked about TED's like sort of monetary history, digging more into what it does outside of just these conferences is sort of interesting. So TED has like a huge amount of different events that they do. Let me pull up a couple because I don't want to mislabel some of these. So they have TED Global, which is like an internationally oriented TED conference. Because TED is specifically tied to North America. It's tied to Canada. It's tied to the US.
Sorry, Mexico.
And yeah, sorry, Mexico. So they have like a TED Global, which was launched in 2005. And it does a lot in like the UK. There was something in Tanzania. There was something in Brazil. There were a couple of in India. So that's interesting.
TED, come to Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
TED Antarctica.
Yeah. And then there's this thing called like TED Translators. So it's like an open platform where people translate TED Talks for like other countries and other languages, but it's meant for regional countries and whatnot.
Did you guys hear about the con lady who made it to like an official city broadcast and she faked knowing ASL?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That happened a while ago,
like,
right?
Yeah, like I don't know if it was like a year or a few months, but like she
What
goes,
happened?
she walks in and she's just like, I know what the fuck I'm doing. Hire me. And they're like, got it. And then she goes on and she like does some sign, like she does a few signs that are like letters, and she does some things. But if you know, and I have very basic rudimentary knowledge of American Sign Language, so I've read someone translate it, and they're like, it's just a bunch of letters, random words, hand motions, a lot of random hand motions, and that's it. And so the city was like, we fucked up, like we didn't know. And it's like, how do you not, like, shouldn't you have this unlock already?
Yeah, shouldn't you have an algorithm that decides who gets hired?
Bring it all back around. Segways.
Yeah. Segways. This is the segue episode. Okay. So TEDx is independent events, and these are the ones that we most commonly run across, I think, in terms of videos. So the videos for TED started getting put up in like 2006. And a lot of them originally came from the independent events. And these independent events are called like TEDx. And they're mostly held at like universities. Sometimes they're held at like businesses, but most times it's universities or like private into like academic institutions, like like a research center or something.
Okay.
And so these are like these are the ones that we see most videos from, because I think these happen way more frequently just because of how many places caught the TED bug and were like, yo, this is sort of cool. I want to do a TED talk. I want my, colleagues to be able to engage with this. So that started roughly in, I think in,
So TEDx is like a kind of like you can borrow the name TED, but like it's not, we're not going to do anything for you. You can just use the name.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like,
okay,
here's how you run a TED talk, but we're not going to provide anything for you, and we get all of the rights to the materials that you end up creating. So
that's exactly like Andrew said, paying exposure.
Yep. So I don't remember exactly when TEDx started, but it started after started in the like mid 2000s. And so these are the ones we see the most of. And to be honest, I think these are the ones that have the best talks, because you're not getting just from my take, you're not getting people who are like Bill Gates level doing these talks. You're getting people who are like college professors working on like very specific things that like generally benefit the rest of society, instead of it being hyper focused for like, yo, this is why technology is going to save our asses. It's instead like, look at this particular thing that happened. How can we resolve this problem? Yeah, so that's a thing. There's like a TED Fellows thing. There's a TED Educational thing, which is where TED creates educational videos for YouTube. And then there's a podcast also.
What's up?
Yeah, what's up, Chris Anderson? Have us on your show.
Have us on your show. It's like competing podcasts.
Do you want to know? Yeah, it's a competing podcast. Do you want to know who the other speakers are on the
Mark Maron, Joe Rogan,
Bill Gates, Amanda Palmer.
Are they like frequent hosts, or are they just guests that they've had?
Bill Gates has like they're like guests, but Bill Gates has like 6 or 7 episodes. So I'm like, yeah, have me on your show. Yeah. But so that's the background for TED. And like I came in to actually recommending this, hoping not to like, expecting not to like rant about how capitalist TED is, but it's all honestly pretty funny how that just ends up happening.
Didn't you kind of preface your recommendation with how you were going to rant about?
There you go, Andres. Call out our boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
You specifically were talking about it.
You
I have short-term memory, so
yeah, you're kind of.
Are you gaslighting yourself?
That's a normal play for me, if I'm being.
It is definitely a normal play for
me. Okay, well then I'm shitting on TED. This is the shit on TED talk. Funny. So yeah, so like that's those are some of my problems with TED in general, but I also really love like what they bring to the table in terms of the knowledge. I have a couple of funny like things that they've censored over the years. So Sarah Silverman did a talk.
Ooh, I like Sarah Silverman.
And and during her talk, she dropped a oh my god, I was gonna say a hard R. That's not what she dropped. She talked about a particular baby that she was adopting or something, and how it has mental disabilities, but did not use such a word to describe the baby.
Jesus.
So yeah, and so that got her and
like it got bleeped, or they just deleted the whole episode.
So what happened is it got posted without being censored, but Chris Anderson was like, "Yo, this is not. We do not endorse this." And so all of the beef I'm about to talk about has happened specifically with Chris Anderson, specifically on over Twitter or on like journals. So weird. Shout out to the Twitter gang. Yeah. The other one was by this like economist named Nassim Taleb, who was like talking about the impending financial crisis of like the mid 2000s, which we all know that definitely happened, 2008. Ooh. But he was talking about how like TED was like turning, so they wouldn't put his talk up because TED has such like capitalist ties. At least this is what he was saying. It was like, I'm talking about how shit's gonna go south, but you guys won't put my video up on your website. Why is that? And I forgot how it got squashed, but that's sort of how it went. And there's a lot of those sort of things. There was another economist, or maybe college professor, I don't know, by the name of Nick Hannun, and he specifically was talking about how like the top earners in America aren't the people who are creating the jobs in America. And they just straight up didn't put his video up and was like, yeah, we can't do that because it's too controversial. And I'm like, how is that a controversial take?
That's just true.
Like, right, exactly. And then there was a guy who was promoting like DMT, and they wouldn't they wouldn't
Hell
endorse
yeah, it was Joe Rogan.
It was not Joe Rogan, although I would love to see Joe Rogan do a TED Talk.
God, it'd be so,
if I'm being real.
Started on that. Please.
But yeah, his name was Graham Hancock. Yeah, so we're gonna move past that. Yeah. So TED has had like some censorship problems, and those are just a couple of them. I have like a little bit of a longer list, but so TED is interesting because on one hand it offers like a platform for knowledge, but on the other hand it has like these ties to everything else that makes it a little bit tenuous in terms of how the knowledge is curated. Yeah. So with that being said, that's everything I have for TED in terms of like background. And I think one of the things that would be interesting to like dive into is maybe Andres's first video, just because I see some like parallels in the way that like the knowledge was communicated that I find interesting. But
damn, y'all Manny's getting ready to shit on Renzo Piano.
I had questions too for Andres.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll just tell us about the video.
I just have one. I have like one technical question and then one like just fun conversation question. He mentions lead in his video, LEED. I just don't know what that is, and I didn't want to. I wanted you to see if you knew it before I googled it.
Well, let me just explain what the video is about, like in a sentence first, and then I can explain what lead is. It's basically just Renzo Piano. He's one of the most famous architects within the architect realm, I suppose. Like if you asked anybody who Renzo Piano is outside of there, they'd probably just look at you with a blank face, but he's pretty famous. He's definitely well known within the architecture realm, and very much so within, I want to say, the architecture education realm, because he is definitely somebody they told us to look to when we were in architecture school. And the video is really just him kind of showing off a lot of his projects and kind of going into like a real, almost like a sentence long explanation of what he is attempting to do with it. And just overall, the message he is trying to convey, he doesn't really do a good job at it because he's very kind of flippantly talking about his projects and running through them like really fast, even though he's talking really slow. But
oh my god, he talks like so fucking slow.
I was playing it at 2x speed, and
Hell
he
yeah,
he was like, "This is interesting. This is what I do."
Can we sound clip this? Is interesting, please.
He was so slow at normal speed.
But what the thing he was trying to get across, and why I wanted to share it, is just that you really need to be focused on a lot of things to be a good, quote unquote, good architect. It's an objective field, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who know about Renzo Piano that would call him a hack or whatever, but I do admire him. But basically what he's trying to get across is that architects need to be artists, humanists, and builders to like actually get their vision across. So, and make architecture that's responsible. So yeah, that's just the quick rundown. I'm sure people who are into listening to things to fall asleep could put on that video because he does talk very slow. And
he got a solid laugh out of me when he posted it. He's like, "This is me sailing. There was no reason for me to put this picture up." Like, that was like, I'm like, all right. I like the meta joke, but it is stupid.
The real reason was that he does use like technology that they use to build boats in some of his buildings, and that's like why he showed the building after that he showed, but he did not explain that.
No, he did a solid bit.
Yeah,
and his office is gorgeous.
Yeah,
he was like, "This is my office," and I'm like, "What the fuck?" He's like, "This is the tram we use to have lunch on," and I was like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?"
And for reference, I'm pretty sure that this was like a TED conference talk, so like one of the bigwig talks.
Yeah,
for TED.
It was on TED proper, not TEDx. But, to answer your previous question, Alexi, LEED is basically the organization that rates buildings based on their energy use and possible production. So it's very iffy. It's basically just the equivalent of paying somebody to say like, hey, my building is environmentally friendly, which is kind of why I don't mind him kind of like skimming over that, because it is kind of something that maybe you shouldn't be proud of. Like, there's literally, I remember when I was in school, I heard somebody say and that there's literally a building in Florida, I think, that had like a gas generator in the building, and it was technically producing power, so it was offsetting the usage of the power to the power grid by using fossil fuels within the building, and it was like LEED Platinum or something like that. So it's very loose.
Oh no.
It's very loose.
They know the system.
Yeah, LEED is definitely one of those like algorithm systems that we'll get to that are very flawed. So
that was very, first of all, good callback. Second of all, that dude had some like beautiful buildings and shit. I had a random question for Andres that I'm sure he's gonna hate this question. Have you ever like designed your dream house, like, or at least some idea of it?
I like that question. For the rest.
Never?
No.
Really?
I mean, like, I've designed a couple houses, but one in architecture
never for, like,
school.
yourself. You never been like,
because I don't know what the fuck I want.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I feel like that would say a lot to a person if, like, oh, for sure. Like, I want like a house, but I also want like a big yard. I want like a big area to be outside in. I think that says a lot about certain people. But I would like a big home. I knew someone who hated the idea of having a big home because it meant intruders had more places to hide in their home. And I was like, whoa, like, this is deeply revealing about your character. Like, this is crazy.
I mean, my idea of a dream home is really just going to show how deeply concerned I am about like population growth and the environment. So I don't have to get into it.
Oh my god.
But, like, the excess amount of space that people want in most of their homes does kind of disturb me sometimes.
Love it.
It's super relevant to your other video too, but that's not the segue because I have questions about this video. So I'm gonna openly challenge like a couple of statements that he made, and I'm not gonna quote them verbatim.
Is he Italian? Like, where's the birth certificate?
Does he actually sail? No. Oh my god, Alexi's doing the Italian hands right now.
Double Italian hands.
So he like openly states that like architecture is building a structure specifically for people to inhabit. Specifically, like that's like his thing is like architecture is building the thing. And I know a lot of architecture people, especially on the experimental side of architecture, who would contest that. So like how does that that's just like a broad question that I had pop up into my head because I work with a lot of those experimental folks. So
yeah, I mean there's another thing that it's a very practical way of thinking about architecture, I suppose. But if you don't think about it like that or are not explaining it like that, it kind of brings architecture more into the artful realm.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to explain in a way that doesn't make you look like either a high artist and or very pretentious.
I guess I would agree with this statement.
That's
right?
always
like,
a problem.
Architecture is for people to use, and if you're like, oh, well, this isn't for people to use, this is for people to admire. It's like, okay, so that's just in my like very different way of thinking.
It's very much so a philosophy-based thing, like an architecture theory-based thing. I subscribe to the idea that architecture is made for people, and that is the number one thing you must focus on, which is probably why I connect to Renzo Piano's work.
And you
pasta. That was I don't mean to challenge like anything is created because I think everything's beautiful. It's mostly just like the way that he handled himself. I felt a lot of like I don't know. I've been doing like a lot of social oriented work here at my school, and I just felt like a lot of like, yo, I'm this wealthy guy. Like when he threw up the picture of the sailboat, I was like, oh no, what is this?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I definitely had that moment when he put up the sailing picture. It's like, oh man, Renzo, you're not helping yourself here. This is definitely painting architecture as the rich white male profession, which I mean to an extent is true, but
yeah. And he also like romanticized it, which I don't think there's a problem with romanticizing architecture. I just think that like it can be a little alienating to some folks. He got very philosophical at the end, you know, which I really liked.
I think all of that's gonna comment I was gonna make. I think all of these videos dip into like that idea of like we need to do this like big emotional move, a big idea move instead of like because it's hard to end it and be like these are the next steps you need to do to accomplish this goal. Like especially with architecture, it does need to be an idea, and it is as Andres said, objective. Is that the word you use? Career.
Practical.
It's saying like it's
as we'll get into on another talk. I don't remember which one off the top of my head, but I hate the idea of objectivity in anything.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Are you good?
Yeah, I don't know what you're trying to ask. What?
There's one where I'm gonna try to remember what I was saying. It's based off everyone's opinion. Like what is architecture, what's not. Like what does a person want in a house versus what a person want in a building type situation. Like it is. It's hard to. There's no black and white in this, right? Because if it all was like we'd each have a coffin, like this is your home, and then you go and you eat in the kitchen where there's a table, like, and you get this chair that supports this. Then there'd be no feeling and emotion and passion in it. So it kind of needs to be a bit romanticized.
And I think that's what I really admire about his work. He he doesn't really explain it in very eloquent terms, but a lot of what his work focuses on is looking at the context of the building itself and how it can respond to the like actual physical environment and like the social context as well. The Pompidou Center that he showed is very famous and like kind of just one of those like revolutionary, like super influential buildings, because he kind of mentions it but doesn't, but like it's surrounded by like traditional France, and then it's just this wild building that's like meant to be as open as possible and a framework for anything that you can do inside of it. And it's basically revolutionized museums a little bit and was just like, hey, your museum doesn't have to be a white box. It can be expressive on the outside while also creating a very like kind of experimental place for art to happen on the inside. And I think that's what I really admire, because I mean, all the things he was pointing out was how the architecture really reflects on the outside and reacts to the environment. But what he doesn't really properly highlight is that most of everything that he shows, except for the glass shard, really is all publicly based buildings. Like, it's meant for people to see inside. So you don't need to be like a hoity-toity person that is mentioned in the other video that I recommended to see this like high-end architecture. Like, it's available to people who are willing to either buy that art museum ticket or need to go to the airport or whatever.
Yeah, that was something that's something I really identify with too. It's like ways to serve the broader public.
And I think that's what he means by like, what is he? Beauty will save the world. Like, I think what, like, to read between the lines is that like beautiful architecture, like available to everybody, will be what really starts to change people's perspective and stuff like that. But
yeah, that's definitely how I read it too. And you could tell he spent a lot of time focusing on the pavilion, and like the outdoor area that was part of the museum. I think he was talking about how it was like a social gathering space. I don't remember exactly what that was, but
shout out to Penguin Drum for using the Pompidou Center as the hospital. that it's like 1-to-1, and I love it when I see it every time. It's like, fuck
that is so perfect for you.
That's so intense. I didn't even realize. And I'm watching Penguin Drum right now. I'll have to go.
They even like do a shot from the exterior where somebody's like standing, and they even like correctly get the structure right. Like, Pompidou Center was like drilled into us as architecture students, and it's such a cool concept, but they like get it so right, and I love it.
That's something we're gonna need to have an actual episode on, is like anime and architecture and anime.
That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be, yeah, it's one of my favorite things about anime in general, is just like the care that goes into scenes, settings, and all of that. It's really special.
Before I kind of want to make another just a weird comment and see how you guys feel about it. Do you think, like, specifically, you guys have more art driven field. Do you think that there is a definite need, if not sometimes like it feels weird to say like this guy can be a bit romantic and like grandiose in his architecture, and then there might be a different level of architecture person that like you talk to, or like musician, even like a person who's like, oh, music is feeling, music is this and this. Another person who says like music is these numbers and look at what I can produce with these, and like the full range of like how art can be. And you do need a person in all of those to kind of inspire you to make your own stuff, if that makes sense. Like if we were all just listening to Shakespeare, we'd all kind of just make like, I don't know, not Shakespeare. I don't know who makes music. If we were all just listening to Skrillex.
I think equal I think equal opportunity for them to have their like viewpoints expressed is very important, because I think where I land on that is like trying to find the middle point between the people talking about numbers and buildability and like the quote unquote objectivity, even though not such a thing actually exists, versus the like wandering soul, like only talking about the ethereal parts about art. Like I try to find the middle point between them, so I find
exactly
that's like what my focus is on. And I do think that while the practical usually get their work done because like they can put a number on it and have somebody be like, oh, that for a box, sure, let's do it. Like it's just kind of how it goes. But I think there needs to be a little bit of a
both need to exist.
In a perfect world, both would exist and both would be able to do their work. But most of the time it's just the very quote unquote objective leaning people that get their work done.
Yeah, I would say for music, we can talk about art in general, but speaking specifically to music, I feel the same exact way that Andres feels. The only thing that I think is happening in music right now is that, you know, popular music is popular, and it's popular for a reason, but that's the thing that gets expressed mostly. And so there is this, like, if we're talking about like objectivity in art and what that means, that sort of stuff is reserved, or it's not reserved for, but it oftentimes gets expressed through like the marginalized channels of art, like experimental art or like experimental music, that sort of stuff. But I do think that
I'm sorry, I'm gonna
like,
cut you off. I'm having a bit of trouble understanding this objectivity idea you guys keep mentioning. I'm just kind of a bit lost. Again, like it's new for me.
Objectivity in the art realm is just kind of really, I mean, the way I see it is
like things produced.
It's the bits and pieces that you can really dissect and put like almost a number like thing. People try to define it as something that is solid and then put it like kind of in a binary, like, yes, this is good, no, this is bad.
Got you.
Yeah, truth. That helps. I think of it as like truths in art.
Yeah.
You know, like this is a true thing. This is something that, for example, it would be like if there was like an art project that was trying to use neuroscience, right? The objectivity of that particular project would be the neuroscience component, because they're like, we know through empirical scientific quote unquote fact that that this happens to the neurons this way and blah blah blah. So that would be like an objective or objectivity in that particular form of art. And so like it's sort of a heady thing. Yeah,
it definitely is. I mean, again,
it's basically trying to apply math and science to art.
Yeah, which is what I'm used to. So this is still like hard for me.
Which is interesting, but I think a lot of people take it way too far, which is why we keep kind of tilting our noses up at it, like.
Yeah, there is a really unhealthy relationship between like both ends of the spectrum, and like, so, for example, like Andres is talking about how in architecture there's like, putting numbers to buildings and just doing that quickly gets expressed more than maybe the extremely artful side, just in terms of like how many buildings are being created. Whereas in art, it's sort of the opposite, or in music, I'll speak specifically to music. It's sort of the opposite, where it's like, it is extremely feeling based. For example, like a lot of the reason that pop music is created now is because there is like this minute, or there's this like tiny bit of objectivity in the way that we like to hear things.
Yep.
Like
formulaic
core.
Almost.
Yeah. There's a formula to pop music, and it has to do with like the pitches that are used and the harmonies that are created. And so like that bit of objectivity gets put into the emotional lens, and then the music is almost always emotional. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but again, like speaking to Andres's point, it's like having a balance between that and then the weirder side, or the more objective side, like the part that is not romanticized. Like both of those things are healthy for an ecosystem of creativity, I feel. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what my general idea was. You do need both, right? Like you do need a person who's, at least when it comes to things like architecture, like we do need to live somewhere. And it's like, well, we can have fun with it. And it's like, yeah, but we fucking need to live. It's like, okay, yeah, but both need to exist. Well, music is like, it's just kind of everything at once.
My take on it is just kind of like thinking about the scientific method, where you need to be able to like analyze something, but also be able to like go out there and like think of things that could be possibilities. Whereas I think the like quote unquote objectively thinking people would be like, okay, here's all these theories, how do I work within this? Like, whereas
I have a weird like tangent about that. I really got into roller coaster design for a little bit, and one of my favorite parts of it is like use of environment. Like here's a mountainside, build on the mountainside, use that to improve everything that can be done, make this as unique as possible, use your setting and actually do something with it, rather than tear it down and then just build something on it. And that kind of really, it really spoke to me, because we're tearing down a bunch of bullshit we have in the world. That's sad. And it was just like a thing, like when you see it, you're like, that makes perfect sense that they put it to do this. And now it does this giant bank, and it has like so much G-forces extra, and like it just less material was used, blah, 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 blah. But it took someone to say it and like point it out and then write it up and do it. If that kind of I think it relates to what you're saying. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's
what I was trying to say about Renzo Piano's design process.
That's so beautiful. His last name's Piano.
I know. Yeah. Do we want to hit your second video, or should we move on to
Can we
another
do
person's video?
one each?
Sure.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, I'm gonna hit you with the one. I'm gonna go after that amazing one. I'm gonna go low and get rid of my shitty one, just to keep it a balance.
Fine. Let's do it.
So we watched the one about geothermal energy as an idea, and I always like this idea of alternative energy. I really don't know how deep I want to get into it as like a career and things like that, but we definitely need some work.
It's a rabbit hole.
It's just so much, and like so many ideas are one of those ideas of like, this is how we solve everything. We put like we can put wind farms everywhere, and then some people are like, yeah, but I don't want to look at wind farms. It's gonna ruin the natural beauty of the world. And it's like, but we're killing the world. And it's like, yeah, but like I actually want to see shit. And it's like, okay, like both have sides and merit, but like how do we solve this? So this video talks about geothermal energy, which again is like how plausible and realistic it is. In the video I meant to recommend, Jamie C. Beard talks about this company in Texas that is currently developing and trying to do a proof of concept, and they have like a show date of like October 2022, if I remember correctly, to be like, this at that time we will for sure have geothermal energy in Texas to show that it's possible. And one of the things I really like about it is it's something that is true. Like, it is possible, but is it like feasible?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where like engineers have to kind of solve that problem and make it work. She's an environmental lawyer. And so she used to be kind of counter everything about like oil in the industry. And she said, like, this is kind of where I really, it might connect back to my next video. She talks about how she had to, she believed all the oil companies would eventually just die out and we'd move on. And that was it. And then she eventually stayed and had to work in an oil rig, like to do some research. And she was like, wow, these people had such grit and such power. And that made me rethink, and that how do we use these things and these skills? And it just felt like so privileged to be like, oh, get rid of what I don't like. Oh, wait, people live here and these are actual human beings? Like, wow, that's so surprising to me. It just felt very privileged and like kind of not seeing past it. So now she's saying like this geothermal energy, instead of just drilling for oil, we can use the oil rigs to become like wells of geothermal energy instead, and hiring people who have retired from that field and all their expertise to be working in all of these new startups, all of these new ideas. Instead of just, there was someone I remember who said like all the coal miners should go take a programming class and then they can go and work in programming. And it's like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that'll never really work out. Like, some people can't do that. Some people don't have access to it. Some people don't want to do that, and they have every right to say no. So like, it was, it's very, one, I liked it because it shows you have skills. How do we keep using them? We shouldn't just, as much as we want to just say fuck all fossil fuels that are destroying our planet, like, people live off this. How do we help those people too? And that's kind of something I try to make sure I include in all my thoughts of like, the greater good has to succeed, yes, but like not at every single cost, not at just like nuking the coal towns. That way no one can ever go mine for coal again. Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I also don't like when people don't see that, and it takes them a while. It like reminded me of a story of, and this is very kind of tangentially related. There was a woman, and her mom was homophobic. A gay neighbor moved in, and a thing they do in the South is they invite everyone in the neighborhood to the party just to be polite. And then if like, it's kind of like a warning, I'm throwing a party. So she goes over to the gay neighbor's house and she's like, hi, I'm having a party. Do you want to come? And the guy's like, no, I have shit to do. And she's like, okay, sorry about that. And she comes home and she's like, thank God. Like, oh, I hate it. Wouldn't want him to come, but now he won't complain, blah, blah, blah. Day of the party comes. She hears a knock on her door, and it's the gay guy. And he's like, hey, I made you some muffins and I've got you some coffee. I know you're going to be busy with the party today. Here's a gift. Like, good luck. Don't want you to overwhelm yourself. And after that, she was like, oh, gay people are amazing. A straight guy would never do that. Like, she had all these preconceived notions. And then as soon as she had a good interaction, immediately wiped away. So the same thing with this woman. She had this preconceived notion that all people who work in the oil industry are bad. And then she has a good interaction now. Oh, wait, they're humans too. Like, it's so disconnected. But it led to good because now she's trying to establish all these connections. But I really just wanted to make that point across that I think it's very gross to me to not like, I don't know. I don't know if I want them to just be like, I'm sorry I was shitty, but like, it just feels, again, gross. I don't know if that makes coming across right.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not a good feeling,
Yeah.
It's definitely not like, wow, you did a good job. It's like, oh, so recognizing
that's I guess the part that hurts me, when they're like proud of themselves for growing, and it's like, yeah, dude, I didn't need any of that interaction, and I knew these are good people. Like, sorry. Like,
I mean, it's important that it happens, but like, yeah, I don't know. That sort of, so that came across in Jamie's talk
to me,
little bit,
I look out for that stuff a lot because I've seen it so much. But her talk specifically about the energy and stuff really speaks to me. I've been talking with my boss about like what he thinks alternative energy is going to look like, and he kind of is like, if it's got to be hydrogen or nothing. or like to have like no repercussions anymore. Like he has a Tesla, he's like, okay, this only goes so far. Like, yeah, it's helping technically, but there's still all these cars and there's still this and this. So it's like, I don't know. I that's where my head wanders a lot. Like, how do we, if right now we had to do a shift to public transportation, what do we do with all of our cars? What, like, how do we solve this problem? Like, how do we like ethically clean up? And it's just like, we don't fucking know how. So like anytime we can see people propose an idea,
good luck.
It's like, great, like this is awesome, but how much is it romanticized? How much is it like real? And so seeing her in this video provide like, hey, here's some shit happening. These are people actually working, instead of it being like this grandiose idea of like anyone can do this. Like if we just hold hands and sing Kumbaya, we're fine. Like it there's some practicality to it. That really speaks to me. From a just a human standpoint of like, okay, there is a step now. Like now that a step has been told, maybe that can be worked towards.
Yeah, those are really hard questions to answer.
Yes. You have 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, my view on alternative energy is very cynical, so I'm not sure how much I want to get into it.
It's hard. We're not looking good, but
yeah. Well, then that's something I felt with the other video that you recommended too. If we can roll those, since we're also talking about that, the one that we accidentally watched.
Yeah. How did that one go? Tell me my video.
It was interesting. So it was this video in particular was like one of those like, look at my cool video editing tricks. This is obviously TED originating. It was like a TEDx talk, but because COVID, it was like, ooh, let me include these cool like graphics and like animations. But basically, yeah. Basically, it was about how fossil fuels are not tenable, and how
natural gas
geothermal, yes, natural gas specifically, and how everyone lives on these geothermal grids that people can access. And I'm like, not really, but okay.
Yeah. See, and that's again like so wishful.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think that's when people who are very cynical kind of scoff and go, yeah, that's not going to work, because they're right. It's not. And it
she was really making it sound like you could just you could dig a hole in the dirt, put the pipes in, do the system, and it would result in enough power to run your house, which is not true. At least not in Connecticut.
And it was very much just like proposing geothermal as a catch-all for everything, and it is not.
It's useful for certain things like heating your home, which that video was about, but only if you live in a place where geothermal energy is viable.
Yeah.
What if I don't even need to heat my home? I'm in California. I'm fine.
Well, I mean, you do in the winter.
You put on a jacket, though. You don't need to have a pocket. I could solve it some way else. Again, like, you can do different shit with different things.
Yeah, it's true, but
no, I'm not saying like I don't need it. I'm saying this is what the people will say in response to her. Like, oh, okay, but like we're already fine. I don't need to solve that problem. And that's how most people work, right? Like, oh, I don't need to solve that, so we'll move on. I don't need an electric car because my gas car works.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, but if we all change, like that's, and not me speaking as a general devil's advocate, cynicist.
But that's also how people freeze to death in Texas during the winter when the floods happened this past year.
Cold.
Just along those lines of those videos, my issue with alternative energy sources is that a lot of the times the videos come off as trying to sell products almost, and it does it through the lens of proposing the energy sources as a catch-all, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with this, where which also has to do with my schooling because I was a sustainable environments minor. So basically what we learned there was the least impactful energy source or renewable energy source is wind power, because it's just wind pushing metal, but literally everything has like fairly big price to it, because for geothermal specifically, even the video we watched, the 5-minute one, was like, oh, there's no impact whatsoever. You just use our plastic pipes. And it's like, you guys are using plastic pipes, man. Like, there's something to do with that. You are using these huge ass machines because to make it viable in some places, you're going to have to dig way down to actually reach anything that'll have enough heat to create energy for anything. Like, this is very misleading, and feels like she even mentions her business of using geothermal to heat homes, and it's like you are trying to use your paid and exposure thing to your biggest advantage here.
Yeah, that's how I felt too.
Sorry for making you watch.
No. I mean, it's.
I'm glad at least
useful.
It would be so worse if it was like not even tangentially related.
It's just a touchy subject, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if the video I linked, like one of the ones I was going to link, and I should have done it, but I think I already talked about it with you guys once. Is Roman Mars's City Flags video. It's very fun. Oh. It's like very cheeky. But if I would have linked that and then meant like, oh, I was meant to talk about geothermal energy, like this would have been a much worse conversation.
Yeah. We I mean, for the record, the 5-minute video that you sent us was useful for getting like a very basic understanding of geothermal energy. I share all of the sentiments with Andres, although you know it much more intimately than I do because school, right? But yeah, it's a problem. I don't know if I'm definitely not going to be the one to solve it. That's for sure. I'm staying away from this question with like a 1,000,000-foot pole. I am not going anywhere near this. But it's a big problem, you know.
There's no easy solution, which means that there's no solution for the United States.
That's a quote. That's an okay. My video ties a little bit into what Andres was talking about with the first with his first video, which is sort of like considering public spaces as a means for change a little bit. And so the video I recommended was the art that transforms cities and the playgrounds of the imagination. And so Helen Marriage is from my understanding, they are a visual artist that organizes and curates special performances that happen across Europe. But what these performances tap into is setting these really large scale events in public places. So her work that she's done, for example, she hired like a French puppetry I guess team, like puppetry troupe, to construct these huge large scale puppets of a little girl and an elephant. And she closed down she over the course of 7 years was able to close down like downtown London and like many streets for like 4 consecutive days.
She was like everyone was being told what to do, but like no one
wanted to take responsibility.
That shit was so wild to me. I was like, how the fuck? This would again never work in America.
Right. And honestly, based on how she said it, I could see that happening because government bureaucracy is a fucking mess.
That's true. I just does it much better.
Yeah. But so she talks about a couple of projects that she did. Another project is there's a contested zone in Ireland between Ireland and the UK, or I should say, is that right to say the
I'm not.
United
I don't know.
Kingdom?
I'm not correcting you because I have no fucking idea.
I'll just say England. So between
the United Kingdom, I think includes Ireland.
Right?
So.
A part of
right. Yeah. Yeah. So so it was there's a contested region in Ireland between Ireland and England, and there's like actual fighting, like firearm conflicts in this region, like actually people die in this region. And one of the things that they do in that region is they oftentimes pile pallets like sky high with the other side's flags and just burn them at night. And so it's like constant like war fighting with fire, symbolic fighting with like these huge towers. And so what she did is she got some artists from like Burning Man to construct like a wood effigy that utilized the same components and spiritual components of the Burning Man effigies, and hosted a communal space for that as well. I forgot to say that the first one was like millions of people showed up in London to watch this thing, and in the UK and in Ireland, this burning effigy had both sides of the conflict there. Apparently,
it was.
But she does work like this. Yeah,
it was located on like close to the border of the two, also, right?
Yeah, it was like in like DMZ territory or something. Basically, it was like in like a place where fighting happens frequently. But those are a couple of examples of the work that she has like helped curate. And yeah, I just thought that there are a couple of different ways I was thinking about this video, and I'll start off with both of them and then get your thoughts. The first one was, I really love public art. I think it's like really important for the way that people get into art that they would never think about attending otherwise.
Yeah.
And so it offers new experiences. The other side of it is I would be fucking pissed if like New York City got shut down for 4 days.
Yeah.
And I was living in New York. I would be so sad.
Like I still have to go to work. And they're like, figure it out. And you're like,
huh?
Do it.
Yeah. So I'm wondering your thoughts about everything.
It's cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool, right? Like to start there was a giant mechanical spider. I don't know if I could have been in that building, in that like crowd. I would have lost my mind, but it was so cool. I probably would have stayed. That the big, beautiful, like she's a church with no religion, a temple with no religion or something, and they burn it down. Super beautiful, and like tons of beautiful representation for sure. There's a part where she says, if you look, there was no security guards. I don't know why that shit. I don't know what it means. That's why it stuck out to me. I don't know what I want to say about it. Like, maybe more than just like, it wouldn't work in America. I don't think. I just really don't know. I don't know. Because this was, it's cool, and I think maybe Europeans kind of know how to appreciate this kind of stuff a bit more. They're not as capitalist focused as the general public are in America. You know, maybe like it's kind of like
maybe.
I think there'd be. I don't know. It's maybe it's a big generalization I'm making for sure, but like it feels weird.
It does. It feels really weird.
It feels weird to like. I don't know what I would do. I would want to say I want to go, but also like we're seeing this during a pandemic, and now it's like, oh, look at all these people next to each other, like shoulder to shoulder, and I'm like, oh my god, like those people are all gonna get sick. Like those people are all gonna get like hurt or something.
Yeah, I had that reaction too, for the record. I was like,
Andres,
oh shit.
What do you feel? Because I think you have a lot more knowledge about this.
My knowledgeable first note is art is for the number for the people. Yeah, I mean, I really liked this one. I personally think unrelated to the video, but also kind of related, like just as a part of my quarter life crisis, is just like trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And I feel like installation art and stuff like that is very admirable and things that I would personally love to do, because whether or not the sentiment actually gets across to the wide variety of people, I'm sure with 1 million people in the crowd in Britain, like, I kind of doubt any of or a lot of them were able to be like actually see the puppets, or were able to hear the story that was going along with the puppets. Like, there's just kind of a lack of infrastructure for people to be able to experience all that, if we're being frank. Because
that was something I was thinking about,
because she said no security even, so I really doubt that there was like some Coachella setup where like they had a screen there and it's just like, oh, if you can't get up close you can see the screen or whatever. Like, so I definitely...
Was it also... I'm sorry. Was it like there was no security on purpose, or was it like we couldn't get security and it turned out well, so now instead of it being a bug, it's a feature? Like, was it that?
If I had to guess, it was that, but...
Because it definitely feels like it had to be. Because if something went wrong... I don't know. That's how my brain works. Liability.
There's a lot about street art that requires the latter, the second thing you said, to be true. Just because it's too complex to like organize, you know?
Yeah.
There's like that one...
There's too many...
There was like a one, like, I don't know if it's street art count, but like, it was like a box with like $1 million in it. And it's like, no one stole this for 2 days. And it's like, did the third day they steal it, or did they take it out? Like, what happened? Did they take 2 days to plan to steal this? Like, what? Did they just have a Ford F-150 and they just took all the money? Go ahead, Andres. I'm so sorry.
Street art is definitely... I think it's from a streetcar named Desire, that it's like, I always relied on the kindness of strangers. Like, that's basically the motto of street art, is just putting a lot of faith in people in general. And I mean, it does turn out a lot of the time, like, if they...
I tried my best to subscribe to that idea. And it's so hard sometimes. It's so hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it manifests in a couple of different ways, right? You have like the people who like are putting forward their good faith and like, I'm not gonna like take this thing or destroy it or whatever. And then you have the people who are like, leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah,
like, exactly. Don't talk to me. Like, and I think both of those lend themselves to street art just happening and like being left alone. You know,
there's also the people who are like, I want to take, but I don't want to give. That situation, like, oh, like in general, of like I rely on the kindness of strangers. Did they have kindness themselves to give it back? Like, as a more general idea, now that I'm thinking about this, like, there's all these layers of like, oh, I love helping people, and other people are like, oh, I love to be helped, and those are two different people. Those are two just different people, you know, like.
Yeah, and I mean, in this situation, I definitely think that the art was meant to be a show for the people, and I'm not sure if people picked up on that or if it was just the phenomenon where something was happening, so everybody's just like, well, I want to see too. But
yeah,
were people able to read between the lines?
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge with art in general. So maybe they aren't.
I think I talked about another episode with like Gundam, and the guy was like, "This is an anti-war message," and it's like, "Cool fucking robots fighting to the death." Like, this is rad. It's like, damn it, but what about the anti-war sentiment? And they're just like, laser sword. So is this like, I don't know. Also, would you go if you were going to be in the very back of the crowd?
No.
I know me, myself, and I'd be like, that's cool. Let's do one more. All right, bail. Like, this is over. I don't want to deal with this. It's too much. Like, and I know that's who I am as a person.
Yeah. If it's extremely convenient to do so, I would like, and I knew I was going to be in the back of the crowd, I would show up for a second and be like, okay, can I still leave now? And if I can, I would leave.
Yeah.
Basically.
Because the puppet one, I think I probably, as a person, would not participate in, but the cathedral was pretty cool. And the Faust one you didn't mention also seems like it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I didn't mention that.
The cathedral there was like felt more impactful, right? Like it was more ingrained in that community and meant something to these people. And the other one was just like fucking giant elephant. And you're like, awesome. Explain the Faust one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I can explain the Faust one. So there was a retelling of Faust on the streets with stilt walkers and like a full theater cast. But it was like a street performance of Faust. Yeah.
Which honestly I think works better for the format of Faust, but because for some reason I've read this.
And the effigy one is much more emotionally connected because both sides are used to seeing those burning structures, right? And so like those burning structures are always at opposition, but for one event they come together and it's a unified like burning of a thing, which is intimately tied to like Burning Man's normal function. So yeah.
When I was younger, me and Sebastian went to a parade with my mom and my dad. I think it's just my mom, actually. And there were some horses. And my mom was like, look at them. They're such beautiful, magnificent creatures. And then it just took a fat, steamy shit right in front of us.
I somehow knew this is exactly where this was going. Because anytime somebody brings up horses in a parade, it's like, oh, it's going to be about shit, isn't it? I was gonna stop you literally and be like, "Is this about shit?" And you said horse.
I forgot it. Sebastian always brings it up, and that's like my favorite thing is that I don't remember the story, but he brings it up.
Yeah, public art's cool, but
I definitely think the effigy one was the most "quote unquote" successful piece.
Yeah. Because it meant something. Yeah. It wasn't just here's a performance for 4 fucking days. It was like, this is a way to, but then she also was like, these people have healed and let go, and it's like, all right, but like, how do we know? Like, is this? Let's hope. I hope you're right. I hope beyond all hope you're right, but also like you're patting yourself on the back.
Yeah,
a lot right now, dude.
I think it did provide.
That happens a lot in art.
Yeah.
It did provide like a moment of reflection for everybody. So I think that's very valuable, but I don't think art is quite as a cure that people think, or the artists themselves think it is.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Shout out to every institution I've ever been at and will ever be at.
Comedy can save the world.
It can. Yeah. I started listening to his album this past week. Welcome to the Internet. Still a fucking banger, man. Just saying.
I've been binging Scrambles since our episode, and I have not gotten tired of it. I need help right now.
That's the energy we want you at, honestly. That's a good energy to be in.
Yeah, it's a high level energy where I can also be mad.
Fuck yeah. That's perfect in my opinion.
I don't think shit that I like, or I'm blanking on the last song's name, but I don't think those have left my playlist since I added them like over a year ago. So
that's wild. Yeah, do we want to hit the other videos?
Can we talk about the one I didn't watch? The I got 10 minutes into? Maybe 5.
Oh, is that on dresses? Do you want to hit the same order?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to explain it for the audience?
For the cuties in the back.
This one is super dense, so I kind of doubt that anybody in general would want to watch it. But it has a lot to do with what my research for my architecture thesis was about. So I'll just kind of sum it up as best as I can. It's basically just kind of talking about how the cities exist as a way, or as a necessary way to house people, and that doesn't make them inherently bad, but the way that they are perceived as just icons and things like that is a little more damaging to what the city should represent. A lot of what it is has to do with the concept of program in architecture. This is something that gets thrown around a lot in architecture school. Program, as it relates to architecture, is basically the who, what, where, and why of a building or space. Okay. So if you hear anybody talk about architectural program, that's what they mean. The point he's trying to make is that cities don't really have that sustainable of a program, and that a lot of what it's built around is a class division. So people don't have access to high rises unless they have higher educations, or if there's apartments in there, they're willing to pay like so much money to live there. People inherently don't have access to centers of commerce, because the shopping mall is kind of dead, and that's what he brings up. But like places like Fairfax down here, or malls that have like high-end stores and stuff like that, they're not really accessible inherently to people that don't have money, because you need to travel to get there. So if you don't have money to even get there, there's no way to even do that. And there's also just the inherent meaning of going to places like Beverly Hills or Fairfax or whatever, that the purpose is to go to spend money. So if you don't have the money to spend, there's no real use to go to that. So it really inhibits what people are able to do in the city, and it creates this barrier where either you have to live outside of the city, and he argues that things like suburbs and the little components of the city aren't inherently bad. They're just different typologies. Like if you want to live in a house, you're obviously going to have to live in the suburbs. If you want to live in an apartment, you're going to live more in the heart of the city. It's just the way it is. But the way that society has really constructed these things to be very separate from each other class-wise is
like segregated.
Segregated. There we go. Yeah. He uses the word segregated, and I think it's fairly accurate.
Yeah, that's for sure accurate.
Yeah.
And just the way that cities are constructed that way are not sustainable. So the kind of an issue I had is, and apparently I was looking at the comments because there's a fair amount of thumbs down on the video because I sent the YouTube link. And a lot of the issue people have with it is that he's very vague in that, and what they mean by that is he's mainly talking about the issues and doesn't really offer a clean-cut solution for any of it because, frankly, there isn't one.
He offered like one small thing, but it wasn't really it's not like fixing the problem. It was just like an example, right?
Yeah. It's more just pointing out the issue, and
which sometimes, again, all we can really do, right? Like,
yeah.
There's just we've talked about before. I like when there can be solutions, and other times it's just like, this is just true, and we need to agree to that, and that's kind of all that needs to be said.
Yeah,
and this is like, how do you upheave the entire way a city is built? Oh, you can. Okay.
It definitely requires a lot of government intervention, and as it relates to commerce, they're typically not willing to do that because how are they going to get paid? God bless the Section 9 buildings, but in the gentrified places of New York that they're not going to be able to touch because of government intervention and giving the lower income people a chance to experience things like the High Line and whatnot. But it's an issue.
Does he talk? And again, I'm sorry, audience, I wasn't able to finish this video. Does he talk a lot about like public transportation and how that pertains to the city? Because that's something I always
that's kind of his point at the end is he says that because everybody has to live outside the city that works there, that can't afford to be in the city, that a solution is to use these hubs of public transportation to create like a more welcoming environment. He doesn't really cover that much outside of that, though. He uses Barcelona as an example of like a good infrastructure where apparently there's a lot more input on what people want. One little microcosm of that is the museum MACBA. It's very huge in the skateboarding realm because the public plaza is a huge like destination for skateboarders, and they don't have security trying to shoo them out. Like the people coexist, the museum goers coexist with the skateboarders, and it's just kind of like they have since learned to respect each other. Like they know not to go charging through a crowd of people or not to hit this obstacle if there's a group of people down there, but the people also know like, oh hey, these people are trying to do something, I'll clear the way if they need me to.
Mutual respect. I remember when I went to go visit a friend in Hawaii, when I was in school over there, they lived in like one of those I it's just like it's not gated, but like walled off from the streets, and just tons of houses, but like so many. Like once you drove into that area, it still took 5 minutes to drive to your home.
Damn.
And that shit freaked me out. I didn't like that at all. I was like, where are the to get to the store? You couldn't walk. I like that I can walk to the store. I really do enjoy that aspect of where I live. Right? Like, Manny, where you live back here, you can't really do that anywhere. Like, you'd have to walk decent far, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Andres, you live, I mean, if you really needed to, you could walk to Vaughn's, right? Like,
yeah.
Or the optional ones. Yeah, for sure.
We've done
and
it.
Just the idea of a person 5-minute drive to get to their home from that entrance, and then however far you need to go, that shit freaked me out.
Yeah.
Like those just like areas of just mass produced like cookie cutter houses freaks me out, man. That shit freaks me out.
I mean, this touches very deeply on Andres's other point, which is like population and population and the way that it occupies space. That's like a big. It's one of those like big questions, right? Which something I forgot to mention earlier. t.e.d's slogan that Chris Anderson introduced with when he took over in like 2000 whatever is ideas worth. Yeah, no, not Mr. Krabs. Ideas worth spreading. So like a lot of t.e.d likes to turn to big ideas. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that inherently. So on the topic of like big ideas, that's one of those big ideas where like we need housing, right? Like people need houses. We have people who are homeless who don't have houses, and we still have problems with housing. There are like abandoned homes that don't get filled, and et cetera, and people who take up way too much space with regards to housing. So like there are all of these problems with population. And I feel like what you experienced was one ramification of that, which is driving 5 minutes through like a gated community filled with houses. It's really weird. I've had that experience too, and it's like it's unsettling, especially when like they're almost all the same. It's like really weird.
Yeah, there's like a horror movie based off that with Jesse Eisenberg and I don't know the other lady. I'm so sorry, but like they live in like exactly
the perfect home or
house,
something,
and like they can't leave, and just every street is. It's like really weird and mind-boggling. And I never really made that connection until right now of like how much that is kind of terrifying. Like as people, we just want to feel unique and like unique and accepted at the same time. So like the idea of like all of our houses are the same freaks me out, because it's like, well, this is my house, but like that's your house, and like exactly like it's different, but it's I don't know, it's weird. And even my house looks the same as like some of my neighbors, but we got to build it and customize over the years. These people have their yards are like 5 feet, and then it's just their house, and like I don't like that either. I don't know.
Yeah, but then there's also a problem when people do their own thing, right? Like if people are doing their own thing and no one's taking responsibility, then you end up with what we saw in the video we're talking about, which is like a city expanding without program that's designed to help individuals or help specific groups. And so it fails them. And like, I can't even imagine a scenario in which someone could look at that and be like, okay, we cannot do that again, because there's so much bureaucracy involved in it.
Yeah.
Like, like I'm not sure how I would even begin to think about like city planning but city planning as a way to combat like the rampant spread of certain preferences of housing, like suburbs or like malls.
There was this guy in my senior design team. I remember I was talking to him, and he was like, dude, you ever played SimCity Skylines or whatever, like one of those games? And I was just like,
no, City Skylines or something.
So one of those like city generator. It was a new one, but I don't think it was Sims. I think it was like another.
It's called City Skylines.
Okay, so
I have it on my list, and I have not played it. He
was like, dude, I'm producing like tons of energy and like this, and I was like, how are your houses? He goes, I don't give a fuck. Like, I remember just the idea of like, that's not what the goal is of this video game. The goal is to do this for him in that time. And of course, if he didn't do that, he could play the game differently. But I was like, I see now the parallel between that and the real world.
Yeah.
It was just like, fuck. But him just saying like, I've deleted houses for railroad tracks. I'm like, oh my god.
There's a lack of something that I forgot to mention is he does bring up that there's just a lack of public infrastructure for things like parks, schools, and they often just get brushed aside in cities. So
my dad always talks about how in some cities, I won't name cities, they have very nice soccer parks and like baseball fields and like places to play and do sports. But in our city,
I mean like the white cities?
In our city, there isn't any of that. Like there's like one good stadium on like if you want to play there, you need to like set up in advance and like you need to be part of their league, and that's like extra money, and that money goes to the field, and that's why it's good. But the cheaper fields, which all the other people can afford, have holes. There's like eroded grass, and like you would need to plant grass, leave it alone for like 2 years, and then take care of it. For it to be anything equal. And it's just like, man, I just want to know if you were hungry this morning. But
sounds like my kind of man.
Right. He's so right. Like it's where else does the money go? Where do our roads suck?
Yeah. This video definitely touches on a lot of problems that are in the good old nard.
I definitely hope when people listen to this that it comes off to more of like this. I don't want it to be 100% cynical. This is just like, no, these are problems, and guess what? We as a people do like to think about this and like maybe talk about it. And yeah, we don't know the fucking answer. Like we don't know, but there's nothing wrong with that. We want to just talk about it and really get into it.
Yeah, and focusing back on the broader topic of today, like that's sort of TED's platform is like to get people excited, and sometimes that means excited in a bad way.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means like urgency.
Angry.
Other times that angry,
violence,
death. But sometimes that means happy, right? Like inspired, emotionally, And so you can have both of those, and we being us, we generally gravitated towards the darker stuff.
I'll pull us back. Don't worry.
I know. I'm hoping we can save your video for last, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That'll be a good note to end on.
It also has a lot to do with my next recommendation. So.
Oh my god! Yes.
No.
Yeah, I really like the way that your video on dress tackles like bigger systematic problems, or at least addresses them. Like it acknowledges them, and I think that is really, I don't know. It was when I watched it, I was really satisfied because I was like, I've never thought about this, but it's something that like I felt passionate about in the moment. I was like, oh, this is like a problem, right? Like all of these malls are empty. There's like no green areas in my city, for example. There are very few parks right now. We have like 2 parks. Yeah. And just like a lot of streets, a lot of shopping centers. And I really thought about like, if no one's taking responsibility, how do we enact change? And that sort of question is also really relevant to my video.
Kill the Batman.
The previous one with installation art is how I approached my thesis, just trying to find different ways to create installation art or installations to bring. Mine was a lot more ethereal, like less calling for change, more calling for like moments of reflection and personal comfort, like the other video. But
yeah, those I really love those moments of like experience, just like being able to to see something and have like an intimate moment with it, and not have it not need to worry about like what is the function, like am I doing this right? That's what happens when you go to like a concert in a classical music setting, right? Like you're like, oh, we sit down, we clap, we watch the performance, we clap, we leave. Like, whereas we're doing a lot of physical gesturing,
comedy,
with the
the
clapping
language of podcasts.
here. But like when it's in public, it's different, you know.
Really funny because the other video I wanted to send over initially was David Byrne talking about how architecture has changed this like scope of music over the years by just where it's played and stuff like that. But then I decided not to, because it was like, man, I'm tired of being a one-trick pony.
I would have, for the record, I would have loved that video. I'm gonna watch that video.
Making love on this podcast. If there ever was anything like
it's a really good video, actually.
Yeah, it sounds super cool, but that specifically.
Yeah, we're scissor boys.
Butt scissors.
Okay. Yeah. So the issue of like a bigger system where no one takes any responsibility for it is sort of the problem of this next video.
Yeah.
So Cathy O'Neil is, from my understanding, has written a couple of books on like algorithmic justice and what it means. And so her video for TED, or her talk, is about how big companies, we're talking like Amazon, Google, like Facebook, these levels of companies, Facebook, how they implement algorithms that essentially have all of these coded biases within them. There's like racism sort of exists within them. Sexism can exist within them. And it doesn't happen naturally. It's not like these are designed to include that. Mm-hmm. What she points out is that these are like subconscious and or so they happen as a result of the way that they're coded, or taught. They don't happen intentionally.
Well,
hopefully,
yeah, racist data sets will lead to racism.
Yeah,
and the data sets are coming from our society, which is pretty racist. So.
Yeah, and that's like the core essence of what she talks about, is like how for algorithms that are operating on AI, how when they're trained with data sets that are racist or sexist, that they learn how to be racist or sexist and reinforce that. And so her big thing is like algorithms that are like coded by society help retain the status quo of that society, basically. And so like, you know, if I'm a video game programmer and I specifically like AI that walks around in circles, even if I'm not, and I have a lot of evidence to back that up with my own work, if someone, fuck this example, I'm done. I
was with you.
So
for a little bit.
No,
and then I thought about Mario.
It's Kart. Over.
Like, that'd be a good AI for Mario, right? That'd be like,
yeah, you go in a circle. But either way, that's Cathy O'Neil's point. Is like there's a lot wrong with algorithms when no one is checking them. No one is like verifying that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. And it's pretty depressing, honestly.
It's confirming the bias that the thing wants.
Well, confirming the inherent bias that the data sets have. That these algorithms are based off of, which is typically leans sexist or racist.
When she says the like the Fox News example, I was like pretty lost until that example where she was like, in the past 20 years, we'll look at the past 20 years of data and we'll look at good employees at Fox News. So people that have been working there for like at least 4 years, people got promoted and no one would ever be hired because those are all just guys. And it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like that makes tons of sense.
I was also kind of getting at that the dude she was talking about that was fired is technically like the model employee also, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what she was referring to, is like that's the model employee, because he was in charge of Fox for like a while or something. So, right, if you're the model, if you're like the head of a company, maybe you're the model, which is also a bad algorithmic practice in general, but you know. There's another example of Amazon. Do either of you know this? The Amazon algorithm example?
No.
So Amazon implemented AI. It was basically the Fox News example, but this is in real life. Amazon implemented a hiring algorithm that siphoned through the applications of folks who were successful programmers, right? It was like a programming job, not like a warehouse job.
Yeah.
And the people who ended up getting deselected were like black folks. Just like a lot of black folks were like unselected for the position. They were like eliminating a lot of those. It was a lot of like, it was basically like white cis man names and white cis predominant institutions.
If it had like a black sounding name, just kind of kick them off.
Yeah, it's like peace out if you have like a black originating name. If you went to like an HBCU, which those are great fucking schools. If you went to like a HBCU, then it was like, nah, maybe not you.
What does that mean? HBCU?
Historically black college and university.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was like a lot of racism and sexism, but this happened like in not very long ago. This was like maybe 2013 or something.
So easy to believe.
Yeah. And
easy to believe that this would happen.
And there was also the other example, which I didn't talk about yet, but a bunch of New York. This is in this video, right? I'm not crazy. I'm trying to make sure I didn't mix up my videos. Yeah. There were a bunch of New York school teachers who were assigned like basically a rating for their performance from this algorithm that no one had access to. Like
no one knows what they're scoring on.
Yeah, and
no
like
fucking idea. It could be shoe size multiplied by length of hair multiplied by favorite color, and that's just like no idea.
And it was so under wraps that like people had to put in freedom of information requests through like the government to get it, and even then they like, it was denied. And someone, the story is so crazy. Some professor somewhere, or some programmer somewhere collected as much data as they could from teachers and plotted it on a graph, and there was like just absolutely no correlation.
It was like as if a kid was given a crayon and just said cover this with dots. No, like any way to gather real data for it. And people clapped, and I was like, yeah, clap for that one if you know what the fuck she's saying. Like, this is nonsense.
Yeah, and so there's like a danger, and the two dangers of this video that are really apparent is like algorithms can have the biases of the society that codes them in them, but it can also be that these algorithms are private, like they're privatized and no one has access to them.
Yeah.
And they control your life. Like some of the teachers were like fired for their score from an algorithm that made no sense, you know? And so it's hard to be like, who takes responsibility for these when it becomes like on like a national level, or even imagine an international level. You say it ironically, but it's pretty true.
I just think into my head, but it is like, oh shit.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting video.
It's really cool.
It's
that woman color coordinated her shirt with her hair. That's a power move if I've ever seen one. Just like, and you think about this in different ways. Like, I definitely feel this with typically like I'm on social media, how I'm just like a data point for these things to make money for things I don't give a shit about. You know, like that's what I feel whenever I think about algorithms. And now it's like, oh, there's way more shit. There's way more shit. It's like, oh, god damn it. Oh.
I mean, have you heard of like the stuff happening in China? The like social point systems.
Kind of, yeah. Let's not go too deep. Let's not go too deep. I only have so much optimism to save this. I don't have this much.
This is a Black Mirror episode now.
No. I'm gonna go bang my friend in VR. I really should watch some more Black Mirror. I haven't seen that in a long time.
What
phone is
Andres, did you have any thoughts?
I really liked this video. I just kind of don't really have a lot to say about it because it was just like, God, dude, I hate the fucking tech industry, man. Like, and I kind of already said, like, I hate the perception that objectivity exists in anything outside of like math class. Like, it just doesn't. There's always going to be some sort of bias towards something when it requires a human to choose which data points are being selected. And nobody ever wants to acknowledge that. And nobody ever wants to acknowledge the fact that she mentions it also, that like, even if it makes us uncomfortable, but like, there is inherent racism in everybody. Like, it's just the way we're raised in society, in this Joker voice society. Like, we truly live in one. But I mean,
these are some deep cuts.
Fuck that movie.
But yeah, I mean, it's just the way it goes, and no direct shade, but I definitely know some people that have said like, "Oh, I'm not racist." Like, it's like, yes, but no, like, and they kind of refuse to acknowledge the like inherent part.
There's hopefully no intended evil coming from you and your things. There are intended consequences that happen when you say things and maybe how you do things. That's just how the world is. You have unintended consequences.
Yeah.
I pray that we all are not inherently bad people and inherently hate. I think that's true for most people.
Yeah.
But then because of that, they think they're perfect and infallible. And even though it's just like, oh, well, actually, like, you do this because of this.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
And I think I said it on the Grave of the Fireflies episode, where I think that calling humans as inherently bad people is fucking whack. But
yeah,
I also think that you have to acknowledge that there's a lot built into the fabric of our society that encourages bad, or things that should be discouraged, like racism and sexism.
And it happens to everyone. Like, if you know me, you know I'm always on my like anti-racism, anti-sexism kick. But even so, like, people have these built-in biases and like patterns of living that just filter in. Like, for example, I said like long time no see the other day, and like someone told me specifically that was like a racist thing, and I was like, oh shit, you're right.
What?
Yeah. It's like a Asian form of like colloquialism, like making fun of like the short. And it originates from that. Like, apparently the history tracks down. yeah, the history tracks with that phrase, and it just became like a thing that we just started saying. But
what? That isn't crazy.
yeah,
I don't even know what I
right?
want
And
to say about that, right? Like,
but that's like an example, right? Like I think I'm hot shit, and I'm not. Because, well, maybe I am, but that's besides the point. I'm not infallible. No one's infallible, and so like, so you gotta. It's all about doing the work, you know. Like, and that's what Cathy says too in her talk is like, or in their talk is that you need to like the people who are utilizing it, purchasing the algorithms or anything like that, they just need to check them. Like we have to consistently check and verify that things are happening appropriately for as many people as possible. Because she's like, no algorithm's going to be perfect, so you need to see why it's failing a specific group of people and who it's affecting and if it's going to get better or if it's going to get worse and just being more on top of it instead of just blindly accepting the algorithms from Instagram, from Facebook, you know, the same company, stuff like that. So,
but because there's a
yeah,
number,
so don't.
It's an objective truth.
Oh, damn, you on one. This is now the objectivity episode.
I'm just always salty.
I'm so blown away by a lot of things right now.
Let's dig our way out of the salty. It's hard left into Alexi.
Oh, car.
Sound effects.
Maybe with the spaceship. Welcome to the experimental noise part of this podcast. So I watched one called "The Gift and Power of Emotional Courage" by Susan David, and it is, in the barest bones, it's something I truly have been trying my hardest to get to this point in my life, and I hope everyone else is too, because it's very, very important, I think, for a lot of people to be. She uses the term emotional agility, which is to understand your emotions and to like respond to them in the correct way. Let me see if I can find the exact sentence she uses. Emotional agility is more than just the acceptance of emotions. We also need to know that accuracy matters. So using words that are essential. We use quick and easy labels to describe our feelings. This week, I was stressed, but that can mean a million different things. That can mean I was literally walking around and I had a 50-pound vest on the entire time, so I was stressed. I was walking around and I had a test on Saturday, so the whole week I was stressed about the test on Saturday. I was not sleeping well, so I was stressed because I wasn't sleeping well. Those are all different things and need different solutions and different things to be, not even solutions, different things just need to be acknowledged to remove the idea of solving these problems. And I don't know if agility is a good word. I don't know if I really like the way she uses it. But
like flexibility, maybe.
Yeah, it's. I think it is fair to use accuracy to describe it, but it just, I don't know. It's very strange. It's a very powerful message, I think, for a lot of people, because I think a lot of us now are believing in like talk about things and tell us how you feel. And we'll say that to a lot of our friends, but then we won't do it ourselves. Does that make sense? Like, yeah, like you can tell me whatever you want. And then you're just like, okay, but how are you feeling? And you're like, oh, I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And you're just like, dude, like clearly not. Like, come on. And then other times, better. Some people go too much, go too far, and just kind of do a lot of emotional dumpage on friends and not medical professionals. Some people don't. I know some people who are like, I would never go to therapy because I would just not tell the therapist what I'm feeling. And I was like, so you would just waste your fucking time? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, do you want to be that way? And they're like, I have no idea how not to be that way. I'm like, maybe a therapist could help you get there. And they're like, oh, I guess this is a good point. And I was like, come on. Like, this is like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, I think I met in college, who was like a friend of a friend. And like, she was going to be the one that I took the puppet class with. Very cool person from South Dakota. And I remember like telling them that, and they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, dude, you're like 18. Like, you don't have this figured out. You're gonna change. Like, it's fine. So there's a lot of it that I really feel is powerful and needs to be heard, and is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly difficult to do. Because you need to be honest with yourself. You need to know how to analyze yourself. You need to have other perspective that you trust and is helpful to you. I mean, you can get easily manipulated to just feel certain ways. You can get self-manipulate. There's like a TikTok going around that I've seen where it's like, I'm not a good person. I've just tricked everyone into thinking that they like me. And it was like, who told you that? And it's like, no one's ever told me that. It's like, okay, so you made up this idea in your head. And it's like, yes. And I've had that exact feeling of like, no one fucking likes me. This is all a ploy. Everyone pities me. And it was just like, no one's ever fucking said that. Where is this idea coming from? And it doesn't make sense. Maybe a bit pretentious sometimes in the talk. Maybe she kind of goes and just like, but that's kind of like this, again, this grand topic of like, vulnerability. You can kind of come off as a bit too much, and I know I do that, so I can't really falter excessively. And then before I go into like how you guys feel, I had a very connected moment that I'll probably be stealing from a lot in this talk. Is someone was like, I just want these feelings to go away. And so she said, I understand that, but you have dead people's goals.
Yeah.
Only dead people never get unwanted or inconvenienced by their feelings. And that's just like so true and powerful. Like, there's times where it's like, I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all. All those ideas, yeah, like they sound so much more dramatic than this one too sounds dramatic, but it's in a way of not like me saying, it's telling the person, which I feel is easier to hear things sometimes when a person is trying to tell you things rather than me being like, I'm upset all the time because I'm this. It's like, okay, maybe like if someone were to tell me like, you're upset because of these, it's easier for me to process those things if someone tells me. How did you guys feel watching this? Was it was
Yeah, I thought when she said that, I was like, damn, you gonna write like a emo revival album or something? Like, that's lit.
When is it dropping?
That really resonated with me a lot. The biggest takeaway from this video that I had was one of the quotes she put up, which was like, discomfort is part of the contract of living.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right. I was like, I don't I was like,
girl.
well, because I had always thought things like that, but it always seemed too pessimistic, right? It always seems like there's like something that like is sitting somewhere in the back of some philosopher's mind or something.
To go back
that's
to what
like,
I was saying earlier, there's no hope in someone saying I'd rather be sad than feel nothing at all. Like it doesn't feel as hopeful as someone saying like, you want what a dead person, like, to be alive, you must feel these things.
Yeah, and it definitely felt better than normally than how I would feel if someone was telling me that.
Yeah.
Telling me like, you're gonna be like, part of life is that you're gonna be depressed sometimes. Like, no, like the way that she said it was really nice. But I always thought that maybe like somewhere in my mind, somewhere in someone's mind, it would not be a necessity. Like, it's just a hypothesis. But the more I think about it, the more I realize like, she's not wrong. Like, everyone goes through problems, and it's like the way you rebound from those that really makes us who we are, I guess. I don't know, without getting too philosophical.
How we get up from the fall is much more defining than how we fell, you know, like it is
because
important.
Everyone's falling.
Yeah.
In some way. Sometimes
we all fall.
I really like
at the mall. I'm sorry.
I can just leave. I really like this specific talk. It speaks a lot to the concept of just emotional maturity, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I think I like when she brings up the notebook example, I think that has kind of happened to me before, but just in a different way. Like I truly think watching Evangelion was like my notebook moment where it brought a lot of like the false positivity that I had been feeling up to that point, where it's like, yeah, maybe this part of me isn't great, but I just got to stay positive and it'll just like either go away or fix itself. And I think that point in my life was just kind of like showing me a mirror of things, and it was like, oh, things just kind of aren't all right. And it took that just like to start acknowledging that there were problems, or that I had problems in my life and stuff like that. And
for the audience real quick, the notebook thing is she's handed a blank notebook and just says, write whatever you're feeling, tell the truth, and write like nobody's reading.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Andre. And I feel like I've kind of come to some of the conclusions that she was mentioning on my own, which definitely felt like very nice to hear somebody speak it aloud.
Yes.
Where it was like, okay, I'm not mistaken when I think that somebody telling me like, oh, like, it's not okay to, or I get that you're feeling like this, but you shouldn't. Like, that truly just kind of annoys me when somebody says like, oh, you only listen to depressing music or whatever. Like, you shouldn't. Like, be happier. And it's just like, well, maybe that's not what I want out of like what I'm listening to. Maybe I want to reflect and think about something that is really real. Like, I don't know. It definitely, watching this video definitely told me, it got me thinking about how much I just am truthfully tired of like the need for people to always try to push positivity on you.
There definitely is, and I know I was this person for a long time, just it'll be good, it'll be happy, blah blah blah, and it definitely comes from like the passing of my sister and like how we in my household kind of tried dealing with that, of like, your life isn't that bad, remember like other people have it way worse than you, and it's just like that doesn't help at all. But like, you know, me being a child, I'm just like, okay, like just force it and like never really like, you know, and it just doesn't go too far. And I think there's definitely points of like, I still don't like when people are like, well, everything's fucked. And it's just like, yeah.
There's nothing productive from thinking that way.
So that's kind of when I'll be like, okay, cool. Like, then let's stop talking and like, let's give you the space you need to like get through this. And I know some people who can just be like emotional vampires in that way. I definitely had friends who would like, they would come to me for like help, but every time I give them something, some idea, some option, some just anything, it'd be shot down with like, oh, but in the end, I know I'm a failure. And it's just like, okay, like, jeez, like, I don't like. You can't go either way. Like, just there needs to be a happy balance in life, and I think that's kind of where it needs to be. Like, if you are like this past week, it wasn't a super awesome week, and it wasn't super terrible either. But I kind of was just like, I'm not gonna try to escape this feeling. I'm just gonna let it coast, let it go, and then hopefully, there'll be an upswing, and then there might be a downswing, and that's just kind of how it is. The roller coaster has bumps for a reason.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mention, like, if you are feeling happy all the time or sad all the time, like, the brain does not benefit from either of those
No.
modes. Like, brain chemistry doesn't really work that way. Like, part of it does, but not entirely, you know. So it's also like about balance between happiness and sadness and where you can find those things.
I watched a podcast this week with it was the skating podcast that I've brought up before. I plugged it on the Twitter, but it was an episode with a neuroscientist that had history in skateboarding, which is why they had him on. But he just ended up talking about a lot about neuroscience from the layman perspective, just something anybody could understand. And he made the point of saying your body and your brain is no exception, is always striving for equilibrium. So when you have those high points, there's going to be a reaction down. No matter what you do, if you have the best weekend of your life, returning to work the next day is probably going to be an even harder crash from that serotonin high. It's just about managing those dips and values and kind of trying to manage your expectations if you want to be a more even person, just trying to find that or shrink those dips. If you don't, then that's also on you. You can live life very roller coaster.
There's a
shout out to my life.
There's that thing of people usually take one big vacation a year, and then it's much more productive and better for your mental health actually to take smaller vacations, more sporadically. So instead of it being I have a week off, I'm gonna go to Disneyland for the whole days, but then it's okay, that means you had 51 weeks nonstop. Instead it's okay, I'm gonna do. I remember I was thinking my ideal work life would be, they're called 84s or something like that, 480s, where no 980s. That's what they are. You do after you do 80 hours of work, you can have a Friday off. So usually you do you do 9-hour days. So you have 1 week on, and then you have 4 days, and you have a Friday off. So that's small sporadic things to be, okay, this week I am going to work harder and I'm going to have the whole time, but next week I get a whole extra day off. And I think that's much more productive than the 4-10 work week, which is 10-hour days. And I imagine you just come home. I've talked to people I come home, I eat, I have an hour to do something, and I go to sleep and I go back to work. I'm that sounds terrible. That 1 extra hour actually means a lot, And they're it's about the same. And I'm I don't know, man. All this time that is given to your work, if you can't have any reclamation by it, it's well, I get the Friday off. It's what do you do? It's I just sleep. I'm so it doesn't mean anything. And they're I don't know, you get the Friday night. And I was I do too, technically. And it's just, I don't know.
Wow. Imagine a world where people didn't have to work to live. What?
Imagine a world where we all lived by Spain's ideals and got siestas for lunch and just got 3-hour lunches.
Oh my god.
My boss was if you ever need to just take a nap, you can let me know. And if not every fucking day, you can say I need some time and take an hour. If you need an hour, that's more productivity than you give me in 2 hours when you're not fighting sleep. And I'm Thank you, God. Like, that is the coolest thing anyone's ever told me my whole life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think again, there's forcing positivity on people is forcing anything on anyone is never good. But like the idea, and to keep referencing this in this TED talk, the idea of just like always be happy and appreciative and always understand, like it doesn't validate your own feelings, you know, like it
Yeah,
doesn't
that
make
was a big part of
yourself
it.
worth it. Yeah, and that's something I learned when I went to therapy. I was like, what about all this? And it's like, well, like it's like the thing of like, oh, if you don't finish your food, you know, like the kids starving in Africa are gonna feel bad. And it's like, well, yeah, you should finish your food, but also like, how do you force yourself to eat every day? Like, how do you can't force yourself to feel happy just to make everyone else around you happy. That's not fair to you. And it's just like, oh. Okay. And for me specifically, I'm like, but people expect me to be fun and goofy, and they're like, yeah, they'll give you a fucking break, dude. You're kind of annoying sometimes. Like, that makes sense. That helps.
She also mentions people being hooked on being right, which is something I've been kind of struggling with as of recent.
I love being right.
Yeah.
That's my favorite drug.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm correct.
It's less me.
I'm high as shit because I'm correct.
It's less me because I definitely have learned from being a younger sibling that has just kind of faced a lot of arguments where it's like, well, there's literally no way I can win this because the older sibling will just tell me I'm mad. Why am I getting so mad at this? And it's like, well, because I'm right. And now it's just kind of been knocked out of me where it's like, you know what? Maybe I am right. Maybe that doesn't matter to the person I'm talking about. And maybe I'm not even right, and I'm being stupid for trying to claim I am being right. So, but I feel like I definitely face a lot of people who have never reached that conclusion and only want to be right. And it's like,
yes,
I guess all I can do is like let you go on because I'm not going to try to correct you.
Yeah, you can only do so much.
Yeah. And there's also like that it's not only you or other people who have that problem, but it's also reinforced by like structures, right? Like academia tends to be obsessed with like a correctness, you know. And like in my seminars, it's like people trying to make points that sound right. It's like that's like the way it functions. So,
and I think that just kind of goes to show why I never really like would raise my hand in class, because it's like, or I'd never raise my hand to answer a question. It's just kind of like, yeah, I mean, there's usually different ways to go about this, and I don't need to look like I'm right to everybody. Like,
it feels really weird when people feel the need to feel that way, and you recognize it, and you're like, oh, this person's trying to.
This person is trying to sound smart is usually what would happen. It's like,
I've been both those people so many times. Well, I think in the end this talk is a good way to.
I think a lot of people could benefit from.
A lot of people could benefit from this. A lot of people.
Yeah. It's a.
I think it's one of the things that you have to want to do.
Yeah.
I definitely have.
Yeah,
I definitely have done it. I definitely have been like, oh, this video came on, and it was like a video about emotional maturity, and I showed it to people. It was like 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm like, oh, it's actually pretty cool. Like, totally pre-planned to be like, please fucking learn. Like, you are being a child.
Oh no!
I definitely was like, it was a bad time with those people. This is like super helpful for validation of and understanding what you should maybe work towards as people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not your fucking therapist. I don't know. Like maybe you don't.
Yeah.
Maybe you just need some cocaine and some soap. Like who knows?
It's a good grounding thing. Like if you happen to watch it and you're like, oh, this is nice. It like helps ground you in recognizing yourself.
Yeah.
And acknowledging yourself, which a lot of people don't. So.
And I don't know, there's also the opposite where people are like, oh, I've read like 500 self-help books, and it's like, how much help do you need? Like, isn't this...
You need some help.
But I think that's a good way to say I'm done with this part of my video.
Yeah. I feel pretty good about everything. So I don't have anything else to say about TED other than if people want to provide final thoughts about TED videos and TED Talks in general, you can. For me, I think they're cool. I wish it was cheaper for people to attend conferences.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think they're really useful, especially on the online format. So
it's a very good resource to have, but I think it falls into that idea of people always wanting to be right, and to where they think as soon as they see a TED Talk video on something, they too are an expert now. So
yeah.
That's me.
I'm one of those people that reads headlines and goes, hey, have you heard this article? And they're like, read it. Like, oh, obviously I didn't do that.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I mean, it does feed into that culture, ironically, but
there was one that was like, the headline was, Daniel Craig doesn't want a woman to be James Bond. And then it was like, if you read the articles, like, Daniel Craig thinks James Bond should maybe be retired, and there should be like a new character that is much more inclusive and doesn't have all like the bad history, and they should like, do something better. And then it was just like, well, yeah, if you read the fucking title, he's a piece of shit. Like, this is so terrible.
Yeah. I was gonna say something else. Oh, there's also a lot of like, I don't know if you'd call it virtue signaling or whatever, but there's a lot of TED Talks where one of the ones I was considering sending before I like actually watched it based on the headline was somebody talking about like inclusivity in architecture and how you should really like get the opinions of the people you're building stuff for. And then I just watched the first half of it, and it was a good old cis white man talking about how he needs to do better about thinking about women's struggles. And it was like,
I really love it. I love it.
I don't need to see I don't need to hear this from you.
Yeah, no.
and I personally really hate and he acknowledges that even, and it's like, what's the point then? Like,
yeah, just so he can feel good.
And I hate just people whose main message is just do better. It's like, yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks, good old white man.
Signaling.
I'm sure you're swaying a lot of opinions of people who aren't trying to do better, and you're really encouraging people who are trying to do better. It's like, yeah, man, whatever.
Yeah, we need to get all those people together who will benefit from hearing that, and not everyone else who doesn't need to hear it, and just be like, you guys can talk and do your thing.
Whatever you guys need.
Don't signal to me, bitch.
Those are the people who I imagine when a classroom is being too noisy are the ones who yell, guys, to get everybody to quiet down.
Oh no, that's true though.
Oh.
Okay, that's a good note. Alexi, do you have?
No more comments from Alexi. Feel free to send us TED Talks that you want us to talk about on our Instagram or Twitter. As the guy who's definitely yelled, guys, shut the fuck up in class, I'm not gonna say anything.
There's a calm way of doing it, is all I'm trying to say.
Totally. There's definitely parts where like the dude who is making the most noise does it, and you're like, fuck off, bro. Like, maybe if you like, shut up, people will follow.
Yeah. But, well, Alexi, if you don't have any comments...
Oh, great.
Then Andres, do you have any more comments?
I don't. Not on TED Talks. I'm just constantly burning bridges and shitting on people with my opinions, so...
They're pretty lit, though. It's nice when you like get a really pretty bridge burning. That's sort of like what I'm feeling.
That was beautiful. Is that the title of your emo revival album?
No, my the title of my actual songwriting album is gonna be it's a really bad title. It's a working title.
Manny,
rest in peace.
Yes, and is the rule for the fucking podcast.
Rest in peace, the person I never wished to know. And that's
Andres, what's your recommendation for next week? Let's move on from that comment.
Wow, this is actually really related. So I'll just throw the recommendation out there. Speaking of emotional maturity, it's very much a arguable thing that this album represents emotional maturity at all. The the lead singer and kind of main driving force behind it would argue no, but whatever. I apologize.
Art changes.
What I'm gonna recommend is the album Just Got Back from the Discomfort, We're Alright by the band The Brave Little Abacus.
Hey.
This album means a whole lot to me, enough where I basically recommended Scrambles as a lead up to it, because if I'm just talking from my own personal experience, I definitely liked it, but when I first heard it, but I didn't truly connect with it until a lot further down the line. So because it means so much to me, and as I will probably explain later, it means a lot to just the emo genre in general these days. I wanted to be able to do it justice. So
hell yeah.
I'm gonna rely on you guys a little bit, because I am kind of like, as I tend to be mentioning Evangelion, I go deep into stuff that I just tend to go a little too deep in stuff that really means a lot to me. And because this is real people's lives, I feel extremely uncomfortable saying that I know a lot of lore behind the Brave Little Abacus band. And that's just kind of weird. I get you. So
yeah,
I kind of don't want to get too deep into it, because I have my own crackpot theories about what the songs are actually about. Because I mean, one thing that the Brave Little Abacus is very much a classic example of an emo band, where one, when they're making music, they would have never called it emo. Two, they broke up after 5 years. Three, they kind of have a weird relationship with the word emo, and it's usually tacked on after the fact, as I said before. So they're just kind of like, I was just writing how I was feeling at the time. Like, this wasn't my intention.
Were you feeling emotions? Emotions? There you go, Bono.
And the lead singer, Adam Demersion, definitely has a better relationship with the music of the Brave Little Abacus now, but there's one interview with him like a couple years ago where, I mean, basically what happened with the band, I'll just explain it right now, is that nobody knew them until like the very end of their like stay as a band together, and then they just kind of exploded like years after. So he has a very like strange relationship with the music where he's okay, he feels okay about it now, but there's definitely one past interview where you can tell that it genuinely makes him uncomfortable, like talking about the band and how much people admire it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable in like he just isn't good with fame, or like uncomfortable with he doesn't happy how he left it. Uncomfortable with just like it was a very vulnerable time for him, and he doesn't want to go back to there. A lot of questions.
Yeah.
Podcast.
Next
questions.
time on.
Yeah.
Answer the question.
It's a very, I think he definitely, it's a very personal album, which is why I feel so weird about knowing so much about it, or inferring things about it, because it's definitely that type of emo album, and where he's just acknowledging a lot of things happening in his life that he doesn't really have control over and stuff like that. So I think his struggle was definitely, and he was also 19 or 18 when he wrote this. So I think he just has like a very like rocky relationship. And in the most recent interview that I've listened to like 4 times probably, and it's like a 2-hour long interview, but he says he just cannot, there's just like certain times he cannot connect with what he's saying because he's just so removed from the situation now. So
oh wow,
I think
that's crazy.
I think in the past he felt a lot more strange about how people were so receptive to it when it was just his high school band in a way.
Yeah.
It was his high school and later college band, because this album was their last album recorded. Or they have an EP, but it is the last effort of the band.
Before anything, I have one more thought on this, and then we can just end the fucking show because we're doing it. Yeah. Do you think people identify this album because what this person is feeling is so unique and they want to feel it? Or do you think what this person is feeling is so universal that people really identified and grabbed hold of it, and that he was unaware of how similar people could feel like that?
Is it about numbers?
No. I will describe the Brave Little Abacus in more detail in the episode, but the way their previous work had a lot of just really vague lyricism, kind of along the lines of Home Is Where, and then the shift between the first, they technically only have 2 albums, but they have a lot of, or like 5 in total pieces of work. The first album really represents the early side, shifting to the more Scrambles way. He really cites Jeff Rosenstock, Bomb the Music Industry, and Scrambles, and specifically as a working point for the album I'm recommending, because it is very, very the lyrics are a lot more frantic in that way, and he's talking about like kind of ultra specific things where the scope is like so zoomed in that it's like so zoomed in that it's actually kind of vague what he's talking about. So it kind of creates this effect where if that vague point touches something that you're feeling, it's like, oh, it's probably not the same situation, but I feel the same. Like,
yeah. Of course, we'll never have the exact same life, but the spectrum of emotions we share is pretty similar. As much as we,
like,
more similar than we are different is what some people don't like to admit.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Plugs.
Yes. Plug my butthole. Go.
Follow us on Manny's Butthole. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter at SUSSPod. Don't follow us on Facebook because we don't like using that.
Shout out to me. Still needing to do that.
We each kind of took over one. It's really funny.
Yeah, I didn't take over anything.
Send us reviews on whatever you want to send us reviews on. Let us know you left a review. I don't check. I don't go on. I don't look at some things because I don't like. I just don't.
I'll plug. I plug being nice to people. Try to do that.
Ooh, be kind. Don't be nice. Be kind.
Be kind. Rewind.
Be nice, bitch.